Tonight's meeting of the Metropolitan, Nashville, and Davidson County Council is coming to you live from the council chambers at the historic Metro Courthouse. It's a public affairs presentation of the Metro Nashville Network. Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat Nolan, your announcer for this program. Tonight, the 15th Metropolitan Council holds its 81st business meeting of a four-year term. This is the second council meeting of 2023. Tonight's council agenda is just over 38 pages long, containing 96 items. That includes a public comment period, 2 resolutions on public hearing, 30 regular resolutions, only 5 bills on first reading, 15 second reading measures, and 44 ordinances on third and final reading. In addition, the council will consider 2 reappointments and 3 appointments to Metro boards and commissions. The appointments are to the Arts Commission, the appointments are to the Emergency Communications District Board, and 2 appointments to the Solid Waste Regional Board. Among resolutions in the wake of the city's tight finances in previous years, RS 2022-1901 would set new policies for dipping into the city's fund balances. The bill was deferred at the last council meeting. There has been a related ordinance that's on third reading tonight that's been tracking along with this resolution, so it's likely both these will see final action and approval tonight. The council will consider 5 resolutions, RS 2023-1547 through 1552, appropriating $14 million to the city's remaining federal American Rescue funds. By far the largest allocation is $10 million to be allocated for neighborhood needs through a community-led participatory budgeting program. The effort has been underway on a limited basis for the last 2 years. These funds will make the program more county-wide in nature. However, an amendment being offered to the bill tonight will require $2 million of the new funds to continue participatory budgeting in the board-owned North Nashville community, which has already been involved. The next largest rescue fund allocation is $1 million to provide subsidies for electric bicycles. The remaining allocations of rescue funds tonight are $517,000 to offset COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee and staff administrative expenses, to expand the use of existing American Rescue Plan funds currently allocated to public emergency response to include telework and information technology expenses. The other rescue funds resolution include almost $327,000 to meet funding allocation of the Office of Family Safety to be used to address increased demand for therapy and services for victims of abuse, human trafficking, and interpersonal violence. It also appropriates over $17,500 to the Music City Community Court to hire program navigators to connect tenants to attorneys and other community resources. And finally, $75,000 in American Rescue Plan funds to the Nashville Voluntary Organization Active in Disaster to our pilot program to engage the community in emergency preparedness. If these resolutions are approved tonight, the council have allocated a cumulative total of almost $252 million out of the city's total American Rescue Fund grants of almost $260 million. The complete grant award must be obligated. Those funds must be obligated no later than December 31st, 2024, and must be expended no later than December 31st, 2026. Under Resolution RS 2023-1954, the council will accept a $260,000 grant from the Tennessee Department of Metro Health from Tennessee Department of Health, from Metro Health Department to prevent and control the use of all tobacco products with a focus on reducing smoking during pregnancy, prevention of youth initiating the usage of nicotine products, and the prevention of secondhand smoke exposure in children. Under RS 2023-1955, the council will accept an almost $8.6 million grant from the Federal Disease Control and Prevention. The funds will be used to implement workforce strategies to build organization resilience, promote employee well-being, and enhance workforce performance while focusing on building healthier communities. RS 2020-1957 would approve an additional $450,000 from the Tennessee Department of Health to cover all construction requirements associated with the cooler expansion project, now for the Office of Medical Examiner. The council tonight will consider 5 resolutions, RS 2023-1960 through 1964. The bill creates intergovernmental agreements between the State Department of Transportation, Metro Government, and the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure. All involve lighting and signal maintenance associated with bicycle and pedestrian facilities on portions of several Metro roadways, including West End Avenue and Broadway, 21st Avenue and Broadway, and Nolensville Pike and Harding Place. Under these agreements, TDOT will pay for all design and construction services, and NDOT will agree to cover the maintenance costs of all the upgrades, although the council staff says exactly what those maintenance costs are not known at this time. Finally, under RS 2023-1967, the council will accept a $20,000 grant from the Nashville Parks Foundation to help Metro Parks Department support its disabilities program, that offers supervised recreational activities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Under memorializing resolutions, the council will honor the lives of longtime Fisk University professor Benita Davis Holman and the life of Dr. Bobby Lovett, and recognizing his outstanding leadership and many accomplishments as professor emeritus at Tennessee State University. The council will also recognize the efforts of Nashville Electric Service employees during the December 2022 severe weather outbreak, and the council will also honor the Pearl Cone High School Firebirds for the their football team for their being the TSSAA Class 4A Blue Cross Bowl runner-ups. Several late file memorializing resolutions would honor former Cane Ridge High School football star Donald Mitchell for winning back-to-back national football championships, college football championships, playing for the University of Georgia. A second resolution celebrates the unveiling of a historic marker to honor the Kurdish Americans in Nashville and Davidson County. Nashville is the home to the largest population of Kurdish people in the United States. Finally, a late resolution requests that Vanderbilt University Medical Center and Humana, Inc. resolve their dispute regarding reimbursement rates expediently and in such a manner as to maintain current services for all Metro government employees, retirees, and pensioners, and others throughout Davidson County, and do so without disruption. Mayor John Cooper has expressed similar sentiments as what's being said in the council resolution tonight. Under second reading bills, the council will again consider BL 2022-1571, which is a major overhaul of the city's animal law, the animal control law. The bill has been controversial and will likely stir controversy again tonight, so we understand it will be deferred again this evening. Also under BL 2022, the council will 1647, BL 2022-1647, the council will review a bill outlining changes and amendments to the sidewalk vending regulations and the clearing of obstacles from the public right-of-way. Given those topics, a deferral might seem in order, given the controversy that may surround, but the bill did pass without opposition, we understand, in the Budget and Finance Committee, so perhaps it will be approved tonight on second reading. Finally, on third reading, the council will likely approve two bills, BL 2022-1633 and 1634, to set up under state law a program to run through the trustee's office to assist owners of agricultural, commercial, industrial, and some multifamily residential properties to obtain low-cost and long-term financing for qualifying clean energy and resilience improvements to their properties. If you want to follow tonight's council meeting as it progresses, you can find the agenda and staff analysis online. Just go to the Metro Council portion of the Nashville.gov website, then to the Legislative Information Center. We'll also be placing the bill numbers on the screen when they come up for consideration tonight, so you can follow along and keep up with what's going on the meeting agenda. Let's go now to Vice Mayor Jim Shulman. He'll be gaveling tonight's council meeting into order shortly.
Okay, let her go three times. Yep, go. Whoa. Well, I think we now know who should be banging that gavel. Will the meeting please come to order? We welcome you to the Metro Council. Today is Tuesday, January 17th, 2023. Will all members of the council, as well as the public, please rise for the invocation, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Our invocation tonight is brought to us by Councilmember Dave Rosenberg. Excuse me, our invocation tonight is brought to us by Councilmember Angie Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. When asked about this time of year and politicians quoting her father, Dr. Berenice King said this week, "If you are going to quote and authentically honor my father on MLK Day, commit to embracing a World House perspective." This from Dr. King's book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, when he wrote, "We have inherited a large house, a great world house in which we have to live together, black and white, Easterner and Westerner, Gentile and Jew, Catholic and Protestant, Muslim and Hindu, a family unduly separated in ideas, culture, and interest, who, because we can never again live apart, must learn somehow to live with each other in peace. suggesting that humanity could be on the edge of an important breakthrough, wherein the understanding and solidarity of a more connected world could and should lead us to build systems that more effectively satisfy the full human needs of all. But his World House perspective came also with a warning about dismantling white supremacy and systemic racism. And Dr. Berenice King continued, determine how you will disrupt unjust systems and thinking with nonviolent strategy. Support policies that reflect higher consciousness. Make no excuses for hate. She shared also, I don't want his words to be alive in someone's mouth. I want them to be alive in their life. Being a part of fulfilling my father's dream, she said, is more than just words. It is compassionate action. So with this invocation, let us invoke the words of Dr. King and his daughter, Dr. Berenice King, to motivate us in our work. As we begin a new year, the last of our term together, we have 8 more months for action and policy making in front of us. Or if the state legislature has its way, perhaps a year and 8 months. And so we are ending our term with much of the same uncertainty and opportunity with which it began. We have been marching a lot these last few years, peacefully but loudly speaking truth to power and calling out hate. I was able to march with my daughter in Washington, D.C. with hundreds of thousands of women after Donald Trump was elected. My daughter joined her young friends here in Nashville in the Black Lives Matter Youth March, organized by Metro School students. As elected leaders, we've had to speak up for women's bodily autonomy, speak against rising anti-Semitism, and call out a sadly vast array of hateful and dangerous policy. Because of our colleagues, Councilwoman Hurt, Councilwoman Suara, Councilwoman Van Rees, we are now marching on streets named after Dr. King and civil rights heroes like John Lewis, and right up to the door of this very building, this house at Diane Nash Plaza. Let's keep marching and listening and reading and working and making the most just and effective and supportive local policy that we can together, with the urgency of now, right up to the end of our term, whenever that may be. I am so proud to have served and be serving with you all.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, y'all may be seated. The banger of the gavel tonight is our own Meryl Rose, who received a proclamation from Councilmember Sharon Hurt and a number of you just a little while ago. Meryl, as you know, has retired from Talk of the Town after 35 years, and we are so excited that she was here tonight, first of all, to get the proclamation, but also she's I think, banged the gavel harder than anybody else that we've had, so she wins the award. And because she's with Talk of the Town for 35 years, I said that she could say something. It's all yours.
Because I never miss an opportunity to get near a microphone, right? Just want to thank you one more time for this wonderful honor. It means a lot to me. Thank you for letting me bang the gavel, and I was very, very careful to not bang it on your hand as someone suggested I should.
Can you tell me who suggested that?
I'll tell you that later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all again, and I'll leave you to the good work that I know you're going to do tonight for all the people of Nashville and Davidson County. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
very much.
Good luck with everything. Okay, watch the step back. Councilmember Hurt, do you want to make sure she gets down to the end of the aisle? There you go. All right. right. Without objection, we will suspend the calling the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of those members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion for adoption of the minutes of the meeting from January 3rd, 2023? Got a motion properly seconded. Without objection, the minutes of the meeting stand approved as written. Mr. Clerk, any messages from the mayor?
There are no messages from the mayor.
All right, thank you. All right, a couple of things to note for tonight. Today is our own Hannah Zeitlin's birthday. If you didn't know, there is cake in the council office in the break room. If it's still there, it may not be there anymore. Okay. Last week was Danielle Godin's birthday. Where's Danielle? She's over here. And it's also my understanding that Maria Calder, it's her anniversary tonight. So she is specifically there she is. She has specifically requested that we get out by 7 o'clock. All right. A couple of other things. Please remember that your Metro and state ethics disclosures are due at the end of this month. All right. You would have received a memo from Roseanne Hayes. We've received nominations for the 2 vacant positions on the Community Oversight Board, and let me go through those individuals that have been nominated. We have 7. Scott Solfridge, nominated by the Nashville Fraternal Order of Police. Michelle Flynn, nominated by her own petition. Lydia Yosef, nominated by El Mahaba Center. Clemmy Greenlee, nominated by Middle Tennessee National Action Network. Shamika Holt, nominated by the Middle Tennessee National Action Network. Mark Wynn, nominated by Tennessee Voices for Victims. And Sean Witzel, nominated by Nashville Organized for Action and Hope. Those are the 7 that have been nominated. Their information sheets are due next Tuesday, no later than noon, and they will appear before the Rules Committee on the first meeting in February 7th, and then they will proceed. Those who get through that process will be voted on that night. The council will elect 2 board members at the February 7th meeting. We also have a couple of special guests here tonight. I know that Councilmember Lee had a proclamation honoring Aquila da Silva. I believe his mother is here. Shondell Brooks, if you'll stand up, there she is, along with their family. Aquila, these are brothers and sisters of Aquila, Abede, Aldane, and his sister Amber. Thank you all for being here. Karen Johnson, our Register of Deeds, is back here. Karen, Ms. Johnson, if you would stand up. Where are you? There she is. And we also have one of the newest members of the Public Defender's Office here, Mackenzie Patton. Ms. Patton, if you would stand up. Ms. Patton has moved here from North Carolina. She went to Wake Forest Law School, and it's my understanding she will be attending all the council meetings from now on. Is that right? Yes, that's right. She's trying to figure out how to get out of this one right now. All right. Let's see. A couple of other things. The Sports Authority has a meeting this Thursday at the Lo Ciento Gold Post Club at Geodis Park at 10:30 a.m. 10:30 a.m. There will be an update on the Titan Stadium and a discussion about the Fairgrounds Nashville Speedway proposal. That meeting is open to the public. And I learned that WeGo Public Transit is also having a series of public meetings and seeking public comment regarding their spring service changes. The open public comment period is from January 17th through February the 7th. The first meeting will actually be at WeGo Central on Tuesday, January 24th from 1 to 2 p.m. There will be 2 virtual meetings after that. If you will check with WeGo, you can find out when those virtual meetings are going to be held. as Councilmember Henderson talked about, obviously we're looking and watching this language or this information that is coming out of the state legislature in terms of legislation. The council office has sent to you information along with a copy of the proposed language coming from the state legislature regarding the size of this body. The bill, which is House Bill 48, Senate Bill 87, has passed second consideration in both the House and the Senate and will proceed to committees. So they go through 2 readings and then they send the bills to committees before it's reviewed on 3rd reading. The committees were appointed last week, and I know they're in organization right now. The governor has inaugurated this Saturday, and they will start back, I believe, maybe next week. I'm looking to see if anybody knows when they will start back, either next week or the week after. They're taking 2 weeks. Okay, so January the 30th is when they'll start back. You will be getting a notice about that, but I will be having a discussion this weekend about that proposed legislation with Dewey Brandstetter, who is the chair of the Metro Charter Revision Commission, this Saturday at 10 a.m. That's part of the community conversations that I do, but this is such an important piece of legislation. I've asked Dewey Brandstetter, as chair of the Charter Revision Commission, to come on and talk about the bill itself. The last comment is, seems that we have started this year off with some pretty serious violent crime going on in Nashville. If you watch the news, it is very serious. Let's hope for better things as we proceed for people's safety. And as I've said since the start of the war in Ukraine, please remember the people of that country, but also remember as well the people around the world, including here in this country, that are also in need. With that, we are ready to proceed. Councilmember Murphy, is there a report from the Rules Committee?
Yes, sir, there is.
Okay.
So starting with the Arts Commission, we had 2 Art Commission reappointments of Mr. Will Cheek for a term expiring on January 1, 2027, and the reappointment of Ms. Mattia Powell for a term also expiring January 1, 2027. They were both approved, 5 in favor, 0 against. We had Emergency Communication District Board appointment of Mr. Domingo Santos Gonzalez, Jr., for a term expiring February 14th, 2027, 5 in favor, 0 against. Solid Waste Regional Board appointment of Dr. Patrick Greener for a term expiring December 15th, 2028, 5 in favor, 0 against. Solid Waste Regional Board appointment of Dr. Emily Jones for a term expiring December 15th, 2028, deferred 1 meeting, 5 in favor, 0 against. And then finally, the Tax Incentive and Abatement Study and Formulating Committee that I hope will have an acronym in the future. Appointment of Ms. Angel Sims with only 1 M. She was nominated by the Director of the Office of Economic and Community Development, and she was approved, 5 in favor, 0 against. With that, I move approval of all of the nominees.
All right, so it looks like we've got everyone except the appointment of Dr. Emily Jones went through, and that one will be deferred 1 meeting. So I've got a motion to approve all the other reappointments and appointments. Got a proper second. Any discussion on the motion to approve folks serving on boards and commissions? Seeing no discussion, we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The motion is approved. If you will, when I call your name, if you will stand up so that we can properly recognize you and remain standing. Mr. Will Cheek for reappointment of the Arts Commission. There's Mr. Cheek. Ms. Mattia Powell for the Arts Commission. There's Mattia. Emergency Communications District Board, Mr. Domingo Santos Gonzalez, Jr. For the Solid Waste Region Board, Dr. Patrick Greener. There he is. And the last one would be for the Tax Incentive and Abatement Study and Formulating Committee, Ms. Angel Sims. There's Ms. Sims. Thank you all for being willing to serve. You all got approved unanimously. And you all are welcome to stay. We're predicting a short council meeting tonight. we have a gift? Have a gift? Okay. Well, while there's a lot of commotion in the back, I do want to recognize that our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Zach Hubbard, Mr. Hubbard is leaving us. Mr. Hubbard, tonight is your last night, I understand. You've been promoted. So, Mr. Hubbard, thank you for your service. If you would, please stand up so we can recognize you as well. All right, so we are now ready for public comment. We do that on the second meeting of each month. We have 3 people signed up for tonight. This is the time designated for members of the public who have signed up in advance to speak to the council. Each individual has 2 minutes. And I'm looking for my list to see if I've got it. Thank you. All right, so we have 3 people to speak tonight. Is it Sherry Nichols Busey? You get to speak first, and you're from Council District 8, Iverson Avenue, and you want to talk about some recent regulations. And I think, Ms. Busey, people may recognize you. So, and do you want to come up with your
right.
partner in crime?
Yeah, we both signed up, but I was going to let that lovely lady go first, but we're cool. Okay, we're all good.
Okay.
Yeah, my sister is going to join me, Brenda K. Wilkins.
Okay, Ms. Wilkins, come on up. You're also in District 8 on Ryan Drive, and you may want to, you're actually recognized by something else, but I'm going to give you 4 minutes in which to speak.
We're going to find out here in a minute, all right?
Yeah, we're going to find out exactly who you are in just a minute. You're recognized.
Thank you. We have handouts, so we present them to the Sergeant at Arms. Is that correct?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Okay, we're on the clock. All right. Thank you, Vice Mayor Schulman, and thank you, council members, for giving us the opportunity to speak on the new regulations imposed upon us by the Transportation and Licensing Commission. My name is Sherry Nichols Busey. I am co-owner of Nash Trash Tours, along with my sister, Brenda K. Wilkins. We are a female-owned business and have been successfully operating in Nashville for more than 25 years. We employ professional singers, actors, and comedians who host shows on our bus because we are not just a sightseeing tour. In all these years, we've had no accidents, drunken customers, or noise complaints. Our insurance record is spotless. We have an excellent relationship with the Nashville Farmers Market, where our bus has been parked these 25 years. We also dedicate our time and resources to many charitable organizations in Nashville. And we've been excellent community partners. I currently serve on the Metro Arts Commission and sit on the board for Nashville Cares. And we promote this city. The museums, the Ryman, the Parthenon, our cultural centers, the symphony, our parks. We promote these every day on our bus. Over the last 10 plus years, things have changed in Nashville. Almost every day we'd see a new party bus on the road. The crush of those party buses and other transportainment vehicles were in desperate need of regulations. But now, because of the many party buses, the rules that are in place by the Transportation and Licensing Commission have been so sweeping that our long-standing business has been drastically affected. These new rules came immediately after the COVID pandemic, which caused over a year-long shutdown of our business, and we're still trying to recover financially from that. In 2022, to the Transportation and Licensing Commission, we paid several $1,000s for permit fees, cameras, and other requirements from the new regulations, and we were happy to comply.
But by far, the biggest crisis for Nash Trash is temporary parking. Until recently, we had a brief stop at the Country Music Hall of Fame. Customers would use the restroom, buy souvenirs, get a bottle of water, or buy tickets to the museum. We didn't block traffic, and our bus was never left unattended. Now there are nothing but no parking signs around the Hall of Fame. We're no longer allowed to stop except to unload passengers under the threat of a $500 ticket. Our drivers cars forced to circle around the block, which just adds to more congestion. This is even more frustrating when we see the trolley tours and other coaches parked at the Hall of Fame for long periods of time while our driver can't even take a restroom break. We have a great partnership with the Hall of Fame. They too were dismayed to hear about the new rules. We sent a request to the TLC and also Metro Parks, plus several private businesses in search of parking, but all requests have been rejected. We desperately need a Hall of Fame parking permit or a viable alternative downtown where legitimate tour buses like ours can park. We hope you understand that the new parking restrictions placed on our business could break us. Since the new rules went into place, there are 0 designated parking spots downtown for tour buses. Party buses do not use the hall, so we believe this could easily be solved if the city would make available the entire west side of the Hall of Fame between Korean Veterans Boulevard and Demonbreun as a 20-minute loading and unloading zone. This would allow coaches, sightseeing tours, and other non-party buses like ours access to the hall and its amenities. Another solution would be to designate loading zones on the north and south side of the Music City Center. We believe these solutions are viable and can easily be implemented by the Metro government. We respectfully ask that you consider our suggestions because we feel it extremely unfair to be found guilty by proxy. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Wow,
Thank you
good on
both.
Time.
And you finished just in time.
We did.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had the distinct and unique privilege of participating in a Nash Trash tour this weekend and exposing, and I believe that is the correct word, a friend from out of town to their unique brand of entertainment, and I highly recommend it. Was delighted to see such stars as Jay-Z and Garth Brooks in locations I was not expecting to, and learned many other facts about our city. I'm not sure all of them are facts, but I think this is something we can work toward a common sense solution to, and I will go reinvest in the Nash Trash tour as soon as we are done with public comment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember O'Connell, if you would, I think we all enjoy the Nash Trash tours. I've seen them go by. I try to hide when they come by in case I'm pointed out as somebody that I'm not. If you would work with them, and maybe there's a solution to this.
I'm confident there is. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for being here. All right. Last speaker tonight is Simone Boyd. Ms. Boyd is here. She's in District 21, Cephas Street. She's here to talk about housing and some land use policies. Ms. Boyd, welcome.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank y'all for having me. I want to talk a little bit about me. When I was 5, my family lost our home in Brentwood due to bankruptcy. After my mom had a nervous breakdown and grew up cleaning houses in Belmead. I've been a have-not, and I've seen how the other half lives. That's why I'm asking this council to increase its sense of urgency and focus on land use policy and housing. Land use policy will determine the destiny of our city. So I'm asking for 3 things. Demand the surplus property list, decouple the East Bank neighborhood from the stadium deal, and request a new renovation estimate. This term, you've made some major gains in housing, and I want to thank you for that. But there's a lot more you could do if we knew how much Metro-owned land was available. Think about the vacant schools, the former vehicle inspection stations, and even Greer Stadium. Second, developing a new neighborhood in the East Bank is a diversion of resources, and most of the available land is on the floodplain. Those are resources that could go to the development of housing on Metro-owned surplus land, infrastructure in Southeast, flood mitigation in Mill Creek, and finishing the long-promised renovations of NDHA communities. Third, demand a new renovation study. Metro Council funded a renovation study for $200,000. DSG charged us $315,000, and then they didn't provide the information they knew council wanted. To me, it feels like the mayor's office, the Titans, Metro Finance, and legal colluded against us. The Titans are tenants. We are the landlords. Yet when CM Bercher inquired about their finances, they said that information was confidential. Even $300 million less to the Titans can help move Nashville toward a future that is economically inclusive. Thank you for your invocation, CM Henderson. The Titans fans and Nashville residents have something in common. We are tired of losing our communities to the interest of big business, tired of losing to lobbyists, and tired of losing to tourists. With the fierce urgency of now, my hope is that 30 of you will join together, operate in love, and lighten the load on your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. All right, we had 3 participants. That completes the public comment period. We're now ready to go to resolutions on public hearing. Ms. De Ruiz is here to provide Spanish interpretation services. As usual, I'll call on Ms. De Ruiz to explain what you can be helpful with.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Sandra. Voy a ser su intérprete en español para la sesión de esta noche. Gracias.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're now ready for resolutions on public hearing. We've got 2. So I will call up the resolutions one at a time and then refer to the sponsor. Unless the sponsor moves to defer the public hearing, the sponsor will call for a public hearing. Then ask for a show of hands for those who are here in favor of the resolution. Then ask for a show of hands for those who are in opposition to the resolution. If anyone in favor of the measure wishes to speak, I'll ask you to come forward, find the microphone, introduce yourself, and give us your address, and then you'll have 2 minutes in which to speak. Then ask if anyone opposed wishes to speak. We'll do the same thing. After that process, I'll close the public hearing and refer back to the sponsor. All right, we have, again, 2 resolutions on public hearing. The first one is RS 2023-1943 by Councilmember Parker. Resolution exempting Martha My Dear, located at 2503 Gallatin Avenue, Suite 102, from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Benedict, Government Operations.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The committee passed 5 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to open the public hearing.
Okay, declare the public hearing open. A show of hands of those who are here in favor of the resolution. All right, I got a one hand that I just recognized, Mr. Cheek. Anyone opposed to the resolution? A show of hands. All right, I see none. Mr. Cheek, you want to be recognized? All right.
Will Cheek, 2803 Belmont Avenue. Belmont Boulevard. I just wanted to thank Councilmember Parker for supporting. I'm legal counsel to Martha My Dear.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to be heard on this one? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for approval.
Okay. Motion is to approve on RS 2023-1943. Properly second. Any discussion on this one? Councilmember O'Connell on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to know if the council member will help himself to a bit of what is all around him as a result of this resolution.
Councilmember Parker?
I was born in 1988.
Point of order, I believe everyone has heard of the Beatles.
All right, moving ahead. We are ready. Oh, wait a minute. Councilor, oh, you're just here for the next one. All right, we are ready to vote. All those in favor of RS 2023-1943 for passage, say aye. Opposed, no. That one passes. Thank you, Councilmember O'Connell and Councilmember Parker. We're on RS 2023-1944 by Councilmember Withers. It's a resolution exempting Velvet Taco, East Nashville, located at 301 Gallatin Avenue from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit. Councilmember Withers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Could I get committee reports, please?
You certainly can. Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Government Operations and Regulations Committee approved 5 in favor, 0 against the resolution that exempts Velvet Taco for their beer permit.
All right, that sounds good. Councilmember Withers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to open the public hearing, please.
Declare the public hearing open. A show of hands of those who are here in favor of the resolution. All right. Show of hands of those who are here in opposition to the resolution. Seeing nobody in opposition, those in favor wish to speak? No, not this time. All right. We're good to go. Declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Withers, you're recognized.
I'd like to move approval.
The motion is to approve, properly seconded. Any discussion? Except for Councilmember O'Connell. Any discussion? Seeing none, All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Resolution is adopted. All right, we are now on consent resolutions and resolutions. We got a lot on the consent calendar. Listen closely. Anything needs to be bumped that you know of at the beginning? Okay, I'm going to go through the numbers with you. And then if you see something that needs to be bumped, let me know. These are items on the consent agenda. Item number 3, RS 2022-1901 is on consent. Councilmember O'Connell? You want to bump it? Okay. So 1901 is bumped. All right, let's try again. Okay. Items on the consent calendar. Item number 4, 1945 is on consent. 1946 is on consent. 1948 is on consent. 1949 on consent. 1950, item number 9 is on consent. 1952 is on consent. 1953 on consent. 1954 is on consent. Item number 14, 1955 is on consent. 1956 on consent. 1957 on consent. 1958 on consent. 1959 on consent. 1960 on consent. I'm on item number 20. 1961 on consent. 1962 on consent. 1963 on consent. 1964 on consent. 1965 is on consent. 1966 on consent. 1967 on consent. 1968 on consent. 1969 on consent. 1970 on consent. 1971 on consent. 1972 on consent. And 1973 on consent. Anything needs to be bumped off. Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized.
1971, please.
Okay, 1971 is coming off. Anything else? Anything else needs to come off the consent? Okay. Let's see. Okay, these are items on the consent agenda. The first one is item number 4, RS 2023-1945 by Council Members Roten and Pulley. It's a resolution accepting the terms of a cooperative purchasing master agreement for the purchase of rental services for storage containers, specialty trucks, and related products and services for the Department of Water Services. Item number 5, RS 2023-1946 by Roten and Pulley, a resolution approving a contract between Metro Government and Ingersoll Rand for the maintenance and service of Metro Water Services equipment. Item number 7, RS 2023-1948, Johnston and Sepulveda and others, a resolution appropriating $75,000 in ARPA funds from Fund 30216 to the Nashville Voluntary Organization Active in Disasters VOID Coalition for a pilot program to engage the community in emergency preparedness. Item number 8, RS 2023-1949, Sepulveda, Johnston, Gamble, and others, a resolution appropriating $175,200 in ARPA funds to the Music City Community Court, hire program navigators to connect tenants to attorneys and other community resources. RS 2023-1950, that's item number 9, Gamble, Johnston, Sepulveda, and others. Resolution appropriating $517,000 in ARPA funds to offset COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee and staff administrative expenses and to expand the use of the existing American Rescue Plan Act funds currently allocated to public emergency responses to include telework and information technology expenses. Item number 11, RS 2023-1952, Johnson, Sepulveda, Gamble, and others. Resolution appropriating $326,800 in ARPA funds to complete funding allocation in the Office of Family Safety to be used to address increased demand for therapy and services for victims of abuse, human trafficking, and interpersonal violence. Item number 12, RS 2023-1953 by Roten, Syracuse, and Welsh. Resolution accepting a grant from the Tennessee Office of Criminal Justice Programs to Metro Government through the Office of Family Safety to plan and implement a 2-day conference hosting Tennessee Family Justice Center's personnel, coordinated community response teams, and Family Justice Center partner agencies to enhance interest and reach of multidisciplinary teams to reduce gaps in victim safety and offender accountability. RS 2023-1954, item number 13, Roten, Syracuse, and others, resolution accepting a grant from the Health Department of Tennessee to the Metropolitan government through the Board of Health to improve the health of the citizens of Davidson County by preventing and controlling the use of tobacco and tobacco products. Item number 14, RS 2023-1955, Roten, Syracuse, and others, a resolution accepting strengthening public health infrastructure, workforce, and data systems grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention of the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health, to implement workforce strategies to build organizational resilience, promote employee well-being, and enhance workforce performance while focusing on building healthier communities. Item number 15, RS 2023-1956, Roten, Syracuse, Welsh, and others, a resolution accepting a grant from the Friends of Metro Animal Care and Control of the Metropolitan Government through the Metropolitan Board of Health to provide funding for various programs for shelter animals. Item number 16, RS 2023-1957, Roten in Syracuse, a resolution approving Amendment 1 to the Epidemiology and Laboratory Capacity for Infectious Disease grants from the Tennessee Department of Health to Metro Government through the Board of Health to support all construction requirements associated with the cooler expansion project for the Office of Medical Examiner. Item number 17, Roten, Syracuse, and Welsh, RS 2023-1958, a resolution approving Amendment 1 to the National Health Accelerator Plan grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Health to address social determinants of health to improve chronic disease outcomes among persons experiencing health disparities and inequities. Item number 18, RS 2023-1959, O'Connell, Withers, and Pulley, resolution authorizing Two Hands Nashville, LLC, to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 606 8th Avenue South. Item number 19, RS 2023-1960, Van Rees, Hancock, Roten, and others, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement by and between the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metropolitan Government through NDOT for lighting and signal maintenance associated with the bicycles and pedestrian facilities on State Route 6, that's Gallatin Pike, from Walton Lane to Wiley Street. Item number 20, RS 2023-1961, O'Connell, Taylor, Roten, and others, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement by the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metropolitan Government through NDOT for lighting and signal maintenance associated with the bicycle and pedestrian facilities on State Route 1, Weston Avenue and Broadway from 23rd Avenue North to 8th Avenue South. Item number 21, RS 2023-1962, Sepulveda, Roten, Withers, and Pulley, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation, Metropolitan Government, to NDOT, through NDOT, for lighting and signal maintenance associated with the bicycle and pedestrian facilities on State Route 255, Harding Place from Linbar Drive to near Harding Industrial Drive. Item 22, RS 2023-1963, Cash, O'Connell, Roten, and others, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement through the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metropolitan Government through NDOT for lighting and signal maintenance associated with the bicycle and pedestrian facilities on State Route 106, 21st Avenue and Broadway from Pierce Avenue to 19th Avenue South. Item number 23, RS 2023-1964, Welsh, Johnson, Nash, and others, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement by the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation, the Metropolitan Government through NDOT for lighting and signal maintenance associated with the bicycle and pedestrian facilities on State Route 11, that's Nolensville Pike from Haywood Lane to McNally Drive. Item number 24, RS 2023-1965, Roten and Pulley, resolution approving Amendment 2 to a grant agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Government through NDOT and to extend the terms of the Nashville Complete Trips Transportation Demand Management Program. RS 2023-1966, Withers, Roten, Hurt, and Welsh, resolution accepting an in-kind grant from Rizek Building Group, LLC, to the Metropolitan Government through the Board of Parks and Recreation for 2 new laptops and a PlayStation video gaming system for the exclusive use of the Kirkpatrick Community Center's new library program. Item 26, RS 2023-1967 by Roten, Hurt, Welsh, and Stiles, resolution accepting a grant for the Nashville Parks Foundation to the Metropolitan Government through the Board of Parks and Recreation in support of the Disabilities Program, offering supervised recreational activities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disability. Item 27, RS 2023-1968, Taylor, Roten, and Hurt, resolution accepting an in-kind grant for the Nashville Youth Hockey League to the Metropolitan Government through the Board of Parks and Recreation to fund the purchase and installation of 2 electromech scoreboards on Rink B of the Centennial Sportsplex. Item 28, RS 2023-1969 by Councilmember Roten, a resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the claims of Ralph Ward against the Metro government and its employees in the amount of $236,000, said amount to be paid from the Judgments and Losses Fund. Item number 29, RS 2023-1970 by Bradford and Porterfield, resolution honoring the life of Professor Vanita Davis Holman. Item number 31, RS 2023-1972 by Council members Rutherford, Johnston, Murphy, and a host of council members, a resolution recognizing the efforts of NES employees during the December 2022 severe winter weather. And item number 32, RS 2023-1973 by Council members Taylor, Hurt, Stiles, Sepulveda, Gamble, and Toombs, a resolution recognizing the Pearl Cone High School Firebirds football team as the TSSAA Class 4A Blue Cross Bowl runner-ups. Those are the items on the consent calendar. Does anything need to be bumped off? Oh, Councilmember Porterfield, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Can you bump RS 2023-1970? I think it's item 29.
It's item number 29, RS 2023-1970 is bumped off. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else needs to be bumped off the consent calendar? All right. Seeing none, I need some committee reports. I'm going to start with Councilmember Roten because he grabbed his microphone. Budget and Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Resolutions 2022-1945, 46, 48, 49, 50, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 61, 62, 64, 66, 67, and 68 were approved. 13 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Did you have 1969? Did you say that one too?
I'm looking.
That was the one.
We actually, that was not on consent, and if it was placed on consent by the, that was actually not on consent in the committee.
Okay.
So if y'all placed it on consent, it was 13 in favor, 0 against as well. So.
Okay. So it wasn't on consent in the committee, but you voted.
I don't think I got the list between then and now, so it's okay. But
you're what they did. It wasn't on consent. It's the judgment against the city of Nashville. Item number 28. It was not on their consent calendar, but it was voted on 13-0.
Yes.
So it can stay on consent in here. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Roten. Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Committee met and considered resolutions RS 2023-1959, 1960, 1961, 62, 63, and 64, and we recommended each of those 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
Public Facilities, Councilmember Hurt.
Give it to Brad.
Oh, Councilmember Bradford. There you go.
RS 2023-1966, 1967, and 1968. We approved the first one, 1966, 5 in favor, none against, and the other two, 67, 68, 6 in favor, none against.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Syracuse, Public Health.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Health and Safety considered RS 2023, 1952, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, and 58. Recommended approvals, 7 and 4, 0 against.
All right. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized.
Thank you. While some of our items were bumped off consent, and I think that's something that the Rules Committee needs to discuss at our next meeting, we had 1972 and 1973, both 5 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you. And last but not least, Transportation Infrastructure, Councilmember Pulley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Transportation Infrastructure recommended approval of RS 2023, 1945, 1946, 1959 through 64, 9 in favor, 0 against, and RS 2023-1965, 8 in favor, 0 against, and I move approval of the consent agenda.
All right, Councilmember Pulley moves approval of the consent agenda for resolutions. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, ready to vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda for resolution, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted. Okay, let's go back and pick up the resolutions that were not on consent. Item number 3, RS 2022-1901. Council members Roten, Johnston, Syracuse, and others. It's a resolution adopting the fund balance reserve policies for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. Councilmember Roten, you're recognized. Councilmember Roten. We've seen the camera at the Preds game where it's they just show people and you have to wait for them to realize that they're on camera.
I'm sorry.
All right, well, that took about 12 seconds. Councilmember Roten, you're recognized on RS 2022-1901.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Some serious business talk going on right there. We're on 1901, and that was...
okay. Got it.
Voted in favor, 13 in favor, 0 against.
All right, so Ms. Darby has just reminded me that the resolution follows, I believe, the bill that is on third reading. The bill should pass first, and then we should take up the resolution. So we're going to go back.
Mr. Vice Mayor, that's what I was thinking. That's why I was not paying attention to that resolution right there.
I know that's why you were doing it.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
And I should have realized with your back turned to me, that's what you were trying to say. All right, without objection, we're going to pull up item number 87, which is BL 2022-1632, which is the bill dealing with fund balances. And it's my understanding we should deal with the bill first before we deal with the resolution. Without objection, that's what we're going to do. We are now on item number 87, BL 2022-1632, by Council members Roten, Allen, Gamble, and others. This is an ordinance amending Title V of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by adding a new section requiring the Metropolitan government to adopt and maintain a fund balance reserve policy. Councilmember Roten, you're recognized.
Move approval.
All right, so the motion is to approve, properly seconded. All the committee reports are in. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Couldn't tell from this angle if that was the KISS cam, but we'll look at Metro Nashville Network later to see. On this bill, and I think these comments are maybe equally relevant for the bill versus the resolution that adopts the specific policies, and I know we had some good discussion in Budget and Finance this evening. I think it's important to acknowledge we are preparing to adopt a fund balance policy that will constrain our fiscal flexibility over at least the next few fiscal years, unless we have, again, an out-of-cycle property tax rate increase prior to the next assessment cycle. And so I want everybody in the body to be mindful that if we pass this as presented, and I'm not saying it's bad, I think a fund balance policy does help us avoid repeating the mistakes of the past, and it's an important thing for the city to have. But as we quantify those things we are trying to do year in, year out, like try to hit a target of $30 million per year into the Barnes Fund, maintain a high watermark for teacher pay and support staff. And as we look to do things like expand any service delivery of any kind, particularly for transit, where we have barely advanced the within our operating and capacity constraints for what WEGO has anticipated for highly visible, highly useful, and frankly necessary transit levels. It is going to be increasingly hard to do that over the next 2 fiscal years in particular, and I just want to be mindful of that. The one question I would ask to Finance before we proceed to a vote is, what is the, based on where we are right now, what is the expectation for the fund balance that we've already accumulated? Is that already available for consideration of, like, how much more would we have to add to the fund balance to comply after passage?
Ms. Flannery.
Thank you. As contemplated, the fund balance policy would take the fund balance estimate that is typically filed in the budget ordinance that would be forthcoming in the end of April. But if you were to use the most currently available figures, which would be those numbers that were included in the financial report that came out in December, I think the operating fund is 2 months, so about 17%, and we are well in excess of that. The debt service side of the house is where we've contemplated 50% of annual debt service requirement, and that's kind of the nut that changes regardless of growth, right? Like that is the number that is a little more difficult to negotiate around. That number would be, I think, at the current number, and I'm sorry, I should have looked between when you asked me an hour ago and now, and I did not. That number is a little short, so what we would expect in the FY24 budget ordinance is a really large transfer from the operating fund debt service into the debt service reserve fund, and that is plus or minus a couple million based on current estimate, but I think every expectation is that we will see revenue growth going into the next year, and that could accommodate that little bit of a shortfall.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Councilmember Mendez.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. I've said some of these things that I'm about to say in the work sessions that we've had, but my sense is not everybody's seen that video, and I want to get these comments down for the future. I support this legislation. I'm glad to see that we're going to have a policy around fund balance. I think, especially with the turnover that we've had in government, at finance director, legal director, all the positions, I think I was the one who started talking about fund balance first in 2018 about this, and almost a majority of the council agreed with me in 2018 and 19 that we should not be spending fund balance down further than we already had it at that time. And the reality is that talking about fund balance at that time a couple of years ago, it wasn't fund balance for the sake of fund balance. It was the fact that fund balance indicated how the finances were fundamentally broken and we weren't taking care of constituent services and employee pay, and we were digging further into fund balance. And so this takes care of the fund balance, and it's a good policy, but we do have to be aware that some of the way this body has worked in dealing with funding things in the last minute in the budget, we, with this policy, probably are tightening the body's handcuffs on flexibility to do that. And the way that folks think about the budget, especially over the next couple of years, and as Councilmember O'Connell mentioned, the way this body thinks about when and how frequently to do rate increases, especially if we're right at the edge of having the fund balance policy satisfied or not, it's going to change. And so this is a good policy. I wish that there were metrics going in place for services and pay along with it. Hopefully that comes next. I just want to make sure people understand the way it works is going to change with this. It's a good policy, but beware in the future that it's not going to necessarily be business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Councilmember Suara.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I support the fund balance policy as well, but I'm still a little bit skeptical and worried about raises, because I think oftentimes when we do raise the fund balance, and the times that we have done it, is usually to cover pay raises when it's not in the mayor's budget. And so my question to Ms. Kelly is that, is there an exception for pay raises in this? Can we put an amendment to put pay raises? That's the only area that I think that oftentimes when it comes to our personnel, our citizens, our workers, that's when we typically will go there. I don't think we should do it for everything. Everything else I'm okay with. But it's when the pay raise is not in the budget and we're asking employees to wait another year, it's when I think there should be an exception of some kind. So is that in there? Can we make that exception? Can we amend it? I mean, how do we just make sure we don't run into something we've had this past couple of years? It's always something with a raise.
Ms. Flannery.
Sure. So fund balance, as defined by this policy, which we lacked the definition prior in the prior policy, is for an emergency. And so salary increases, they are an operating cost. They are not emergency. They are something that if this council determines is a priority, should be in the operating budget. So I would start there. If the recommendation is not to the liking of council, then there needs to be other identified cuts within the operating budget to accommodate that increase. Or increase revenue. That's the other option.
But we don't have the, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Swan.
So we don't have the power to increase revenue. That lies with the finance director. And that's what we've always run into.
You do have the authority to reallocate
taxes,
resources.
Yes.
Within the $4 billion budget.
That one.
You're still my favorite.
All right. Yeah. As soon as I said that, I didn't want to talk about that one. But okay. I hope that we're in a good place, and I hope that going forward that the original budget will be weighed, takes those salaries into consideration. But I'm going to, at least, I know I'm going to be one of those people that will be looking at those races, and we may have to cut some other expenses to do that if this policy does not allow it. But I just wanted, those races is just something that I want to be on record as saying that I think it should be an exception, but if we're not open to an exception, then we have to know that we have to find other ways to do that, and we have to be ready to make those tough decisions when that time comes.
Yeah, and I don't want to pick on raises, but that is the one, if you had to pick one, that is the one you absolutely want to be a recurring operating cost, because it is not just a one-time, and every year, whatever you do, if it's 2% one year, it's got to be 2+ the next year, so it's not one you ever want to rely on fund balance for.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Benedict. You're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I'm in support of this legislation. I wanted to make sure that we call out a bit more what was just discussed, which is, when this term started, we were in a situation where we were taking the TV to the pawn shop to get money in order to keep the lights on, to pay the electric bill. And we were living with 3 days of cash on hand. We're paycheck, and then we got to paycheck, then we got month to month. And we are in a much better financial position today such that we can put a policy like this in place so that we have a savings account that we don't need to tap into. And rather than taking the TV to the pawn shop to pay the lights, if there absolutely is a financial challenge, there is a wiggle room, but we don't dip into this and put in jeopardy payments on our debt, put in jeopardy our credit rating. This really is a great opportunity for us to also show to the public that if we want to do those things, like give pay raises, if we want to make investments in city services, that we have to pay for it. That our moral budget is based on what our morals are and where are we putting money and where are we getting that money from, so that we don't have to seek funding it from a fund balance. We should not touch that, but we do need to make sure that people understand that if we want to have things, we have to pay for those things. I would encourage everybody, I'm going to be pushing it out. We received the popular annual financial report, which is the first year that we've received it, that our financial director put out this year. And as I read it, I see that, our tax base increased by 135%, but our revenue increased by only 75% in the past 10 years. We're not collecting enough money to give our residents the services that they're looking for, the basic services that they want. We have to make the decision as a city to pay for the things we want. So with that, again, I support this fund balance policy. I think it goes hand in hand with the conversation that we need to make sure that we are adjusting the tax rate appropriately to pay for the things that we want and that are our priorities. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Council Member. We are on BL 2022-1632. Councilmember Roten has moved for passage on third and final reading. Any other discussion on this one? Councilmember Roten, anything else on this? All right. Councilmember Roten has moved to approve. It is BL 2022-1632. It's been properly seconded. Any other discussion? We are ready to vote. All those in favor of BL 2022-1632 for passage, say aye. Opposed, no. Bill passes on third and final reading. All right. That brings us back to the resolution, which is item number 3. RS 2022-1901 by Councilmember Roten, Johnston, Syracuse. That's what we were getting ready to take up. It's a resolution adopting the fund balance reserve policies for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. Councilmember Roten, you're recognized on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I move approval. Committee report was 13 in favor, 0 against.
Okay. So the committee reports are in. Councilmember Roten has moved approval of the resolution. Properly seconded. Discussion on the resolution. Councilmember, oh, where'd he go? Councilmember O'Connell.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Anybody else on the resolution? We are ready to vote. We're on RS 2022-1901. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Resolution's adopted. All right. Next one up is item number 6, RS 2023-1947 by Council Members Gamble, Johnston, Roten, and others. It's a resolution appropriating $10 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds to be allocated to neighborhood needs through a community-led participatory budgeting program. Councilmember Gamble, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilmember Roten, you're recognized for Budget and Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance approved, 13 in favor, 0 against. The proposed amendment was withdrawn.
Okay. Councilmember Gamble, back to you.
Move for approval.
All right. Councilmember Gamble has moved for passage of RS 2023-1947, properly seconded. Any discussion on the resolution? Councilmember O'Connell, your thing is still pushed. Do you want to be okay on this one? Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess this question is maybe for Councilmember Bedney to ask. It's a follow-up of some discussion we heard in committee with Councilmember Toombs in terms of it would help me to understand a little bit more about the mechanic of how we're going to operate a citywide ballot while also taking into account vulnerability indexing on this bill. I think I'd just like to understand how we're going to sort of take urgency and look at those areas where that is, but then also invite people to participate all over the county. And I say this as a close observer of the previous PB process. So it would help me to have a little more explanation on that. Thank you.
All right. So for those watching at television, we don't just put Councilmember Bedney over here because we don't like him. He's a former council member, and he is working on participatory budgeting. Councilmember Bedney, former Councilmember Bedney, you're recognized at the administration table.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember O'Connell, for your question. We have done 2 cycles already in Bordeaux and North Nashville, and we learned a lot from the process. The most important part of it is outreach, making sure that we engage with as many people as possible. Obviously, for some people, information is easier to find than for other people. We are going to focus on sharing information with every resident in Davidson County, but we're going to focus really hard on making sure the unhoused, people with disabilities, people that are vulnerable in the city get to participate in the process, because if they participate, that's going to be the success of the program. So we are going to use this system, this measure that was created by the CDC, because we were looking for some objective measure of vulnerability. And there is this, thank God, there is this thing called the Social Vulnerability Index. Well, thank God, no, unfortunately. I wish there wasn't a need to measure that. But that allows us to measure the more vulnerable parts of the city, which lines up with the requirements of the ARP. The recovery plan. They want us to target the populations that are more vulnerable and help them recover. So by doing that, we are going to focus a higher percentage of the money on the more vulnerable areas, so people that live in those areas can get more redress on issues that they may want to fix. Now, the details of how we are going to unfold this, it is interesting because we want the community to help us decide how those details should be by being a steering committee member and putting together a set of guidelines. That's what we did in Bordeaux. So if I give you very specifics of what I want, it won't be what the city wants. So what we want is for you, the council, to allow us to empower the Nashville residents to come up with a set of guidelines to unfold this process. We're going to support it all the way and make sure that we are successful in reaching out to as many people as possible. But the details are going to be decided by Nashville residents. Sorry for the long answer.
It just reminds me of when you were on the council. Just kidding. Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Councilmember, I appreciate that a great deal. I think my follow-up question would be to something you spoke to in committee, which is in terms of safeguards, right? I mean, I'm thinking of those things which, you know, this is $10 million. It's a substantial portion of the remaining balance of our American Rescue Plan discretionary fund balance. And, you know, I don't want to wind up in a situation where a particular portion of the community, for instance, stood up and said, we want to do something that is completely inconsistent with the goals of the American Rescue Plan, right? That this is not a purely local implementation of participatory budgeting. And I don't want to wind up in a place where some function of a community participating that in fact was not sufficiently vulnerable or requested something that, you know, we've seen some of the items out of participatory budgeting that were low grade community-based infrastructure things like traffic calming, bus, you know, transit improvements and those kinds of things, where we also know we've had this desperate need for housing and other types of access. And I don't want to compete those against one another if one community's voice happens to be louder. And I don't know if you're anticipating safeguards to allow for us to be able to negotiate that tension between community preference, but also the vulnerability piece, which might be harder to source.
So I trust the residents through their democratic process to be able to navigate that. Each resident in Davidson County, 14 years old and older, will be able to vote up to 5 items on the ballot, which means that they will vote for some items close to them, but they will also vote for things that they think will benefit other people in the city. And so in doing that, they are going to help us gauge and prioritize what is important to them. Now, in terms of eligibility, some of it is going to be decided by the steering committee, but some of it is going to be decided by the federal law, state law, city law, and we are going to be supporting the budget delegates as they create the ballot, giving them information on what is legal and what is not. So the beauty of this funding source is that we can be more expansive than when it's funded only by the CSP. And so if people, I'm trying really hard not to give ideas because we're not supposed to tell the residents of Nashville what ideas to submit, but they'll be able to do more than what we did with the CSP. Let me put it that way.
I appreciate that. And I'll note a caveat because you mentioned the learnings we took away. The part of District 19 that I've represented that probably had the greatest vulnerability and maybe the highest level of disenfranchisement was actually where we had the most difficult time sourcing participation in that process. And I just want to make sure that if we're doing this with American Rescue Plan dollars, we really get that participation level up and that we really focus on those communities where voice has been frustratingly absent for too long. So thank you for the answer. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Gamble.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember O'Connell, for your questions. A lot of what you're asking about came up during the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee discussion regarding this issue. In fact, it was tabled for 2 months for the Fabian and the administration to come back with a more detailed plan of how to ensure that those most vulnerable communities aren't left out of this process because of lack of engagement and those type of things. And so I wondered if Fabian can talk a little bit about the weighted voting system for the vulnerable areas to help ensure that those communities aren't left out of the process.
So thank you for that question. So there is there is a map that some of you probably got showing the social vulnerability index regions, and the most vulnerable part of the city, the regions that are more vulnerable, it's about 148,000 residents, and that's going to be the part of the city that's going to get the bigger share of funding, $4 million for them to decide, how to spend, and because there is a higher amount of money, then the ballot items that are located within that region are going to be more likely to get funded compared to other part of the city that has a lower vulnerability. And the reason we do that is because that's what the federal law requires. It requires that we spend most of the money to address the parts of the city that are more vulnerable, that saw a higher impact from COVID. So there is by design, there is going to be more money allocated on the parts of the city that are more vulnerable because that's what the law requires.
Councilmember?
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So my question, Mr. Bedney, you were kind of getting close to providing the information I was wanting to know. You know, you mentioned the two other specific communities that we've done participatory budgeting with. This $10 million, is this going to be citywide, or are you looking at addressing other individual communities with this $10 million?
Every resident in Nashville, Davidson County will get to participate. The $10 million are for the whole city. The thresholds are based on vulnerability. So the more vulnerable part of the city will have access to a higher share of that money, while the less vulnerable will have a lower share. The beauty of the process is because each resident, 14 years old and older, will get to vote up to 5 items. They'll probably vote for an item close to them if they want to, but they'll be able to go and look at the ballot, at the 35 items on the ballot, and go like, this item in Antioch has a high vulnerability index. I want to help them get that item funded. So he may vote on the item in Antioch, he may vote on an item in Bordeaux, North Nashville, he may vote in different places besides the place where he lives. And at the end of the process, we'll tally all the votes, and up to $4 million, every item that is on that list will get funded. Now, I cannot tell you if it will be 10 items or 5 or 20, because it will depend on the budget delegates deciding what that item should be. We saw on the first cycle with Bordeaux, North Nashville, that 8 items got funded because they were more expensive. On the second cycle, we saw 11 items because they were less expensive. So depending on the value of each one of these items, how people vote, those are going to be the items that get funded.
Thank you for that. And as a follow-up, with the other budget processes, I remember there was a lot of community meetings and outreach kind of to educate the community on what the process was. Going forward, since this is going to be a citywide, will there be more citywide, countywide meetings in various areas like Donaldson, Hermitage, Southeast Nashville, et cetera, so that individuals can learn what this process is and how they can participate in it?
Yeah, I will need your help. Not only you in the council, but every resident in Nashville that is listening. We've been planning on being on every neighborhood meeting and every community meeting available. We want people to know about this process, but we want the people in Nashville to help lead the process. So we need people to volunteer as budget delegates, as steering committee members, supporting the process, sharing information, telling their neighbors. We have found in Bordeaux, North Nashville, that the best advocates are neighbors, people that are going to go door to door and telling their neighbors, you really want to vote for this particular item, and that's how they get funded. So it is a really exciting process, but we will depend on people. We are also going to make some targeted investments in working with media that will, some people may be more comfortable with social media, but some people live in parts of the city where they don't have access to internet. So we may have to send them a regular letter, and we may need to drop by their house and talk to them. So with the plan is doing a multi-layer effort to do outreach, because we don't want to miss anybody. We don't want to miss the Ann House. We don't want to miss anybody that lives in the city, because every resident counts. 14 years or older, they can actually be part of this process.
Well, I'm definitely excited about seeing this process expand citywide and looking forward to the results. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Suara.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, former Councilmember Bedney. You know I'm in love with this process, and I support it completely. One thing that I wanted you to address, and I think for the benefit of those that may not have been involved in the North Nashville or how the process works, it's completely citizen-based, and the citizens will vote. but you do have a committee that do look at ideas, that do screen it to make sure that it meets criteria and do preliminary work before it gets on the ballot. And so with that, that committee is able to also decide and make sure that whatever I speak is not concentrated in one zip code. I just wanted to talk about that yes, before it gets into the ballot, you have a lot of people that you have leadership in the group, as well as community members, that volunteers, that do a lot of stuff. So people will know that there's a whole process before we get to the ballot stage.
Yeah, absolutely. We are doing the hardcore participatory budgeting process that has 4 steps. The first one is a steering committee that comes up with the guidelines. The second one is the one that we hope everybody will help, is to submit ideas. We need as many ideas from everybody in Nashville as possible. And the third one is the budget delegates, who are volunteers, are going to take those ideas and make it into a ballot. And then the last one, which is the coolest one, is people vote. And they'll get to take this ballot and decide which ones of these items should be on the top and get more votes. So yeah, there is plenty of opportunity for the people to volunteer and to participate, to help lead it a lot or a little. And so we hope everybody here will help us find those people that believe in having a democratic process for budgeting how we use our funds. Thank you, council members, for the opportunity.
All right. Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last comment, based follow up on some of what we've heard. And Councilmember Bedney, I think this may be, I guess I would offer this as a recommendation, is not just to think about hey, we're putting $4 million into areas that we know are particularly vulnerable, but also look at metrics for how many people are participating, particularly in areas of concentrated poverty or the unhoused, because 2 things. I would want to avoid projects that further gentrification in areas where area median income is rapidly changing. And 2, I would want to avoid scenarios where we are doing things to people rather than with people. And I think that's one of the risks for this process that's focused on vulnerability, is a group of people say, well, this is what folks over here need, and then none of the folks over here participate. And so I just want to make sure, again, that we are looking at, if we're allocating in an area, who actually participated, and build that in as a metric on the front end. So thank you for that consideration. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Thank you, council member. That clears the queue. Councilmember Gamble, anything?
Let's move for approval.
All right. So we're on RS 2023-1947. Councilmember Gamble has moved for approval of the resolution. It was properly seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the resolution say aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted. Next item is item number 10, RS 2023-1951, by Councilmember Sledge, O'Connell, Parker, and others. It's a resolution appropriating $1 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds to the Metropolitan government to provide subsidies for electric bicycles. Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I believe this is deferred by rule.
It is Rule 14. It is deferred. It'll go to the next meeting. All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Next item is item number 29, RS 2023-1970, by Councilmember Bradford and Porterfield. It's a resolution honoring the life of Professor Vanita Davis Holman. Councilmember Bradford, you're recognized.
Move for approval.
All right. We need committee reports, rules confirmations. Councilmember Murphy.
5 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Back to you, Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you. Okay. The reason Councilmember Porterfield pulled this from consent was we were both requesting that we apply the Murphy rule to this.
That Murphy rule is becoming very, very famous. That's a good thing. All right. All right. So based upon the Murphy rule, everybody voting in the affirmative will be listed as a sponsor. The resolution, again, honoring the life of Professor Vanita Davis Holman. Councilmember Porterfield, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I also just wanted to add and lift up that Professor Davis Holman was someone who was beloved by her community. She was a professor at Fisk University, and both her daughter, Kenitha Carr, and her son-in-law, Jeff Carr, are just, people that have just been of service to the community, and just wanted to lift that up and, thank them in their totality for their service, but and also just offer our condolences at this time. So we appreciate anyone who would, that everyone could sign on to it. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right. RS 2023-1970, ready to vote. All those in favor of the resolution say aye. Opposed, no. Resolution's adopted. Next one up is item number 30, RS 2023-1971 by Councilmember Hurt. Resolution honoring the life of Dr. Bobby L. Lovett and recognizing his outstanding leadership and many accomplishments as Professor Emeritus at Tennessee State University. Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Thank you. Committee report, please.
Rules and confirmations, Councilmember Murphy.
Also 5 in favor, 0 against.
All right, Councilmember Hurt.
Thank you. I move for approval with a brief comment. I could not allow this resolution to move forward without me speaking on the life of Dr. Lovett, who was a beloved professor at Tennessee State University and a historian for this city. Many of us love Dr. Lerotha Williams as a historian and all of the things that he has done here of late, but he will tell you that everything he basically has learned, especially about Nashville and Tennessee, came from Dr. Lovett. And I can also attest to that fact because much of what I learned about Jefferson Street that I did not from serving that community, it all came from Dr. Lovett and Dr. Revis Mitchell from Fisk University. But Dr. Lovett was just an outstanding gentleman. He also was a fellow Memphian with me, and we know that he is a great loss to this city of his passing, but he was a jewel as well for Nashville, and I just wanted to make that acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hurt. We are ready to vote. This is on RS 2023. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Hurt, for bringing this. Dr. Lovett was actually one of my professors at Tennessee State University, so obviously we were very saddened to learn about his passing, but he was just a wonderful and brilliant man, and just being in his classes it was just very, very memorable. He just had a way of presenting information and teaching that just really resonated with the students. So I just wanted to lift that up and just echo the sentiments of Councilmember Hurt. Dr. Lovett was a very special and loved man. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Campbell.
I'd like to ask that we also apply the Murphy rule to this bill as well, and everyone voting in an affirmative be signed.
All right. Without objection, Murphy rule applies. Anybody else on the resolution? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the resolution, RS 2023-1971, that was moved by Councilmember Hurt and properly seconded. Everyone in favor of the resolution say aye. Opposed, no. Resolution is adopted. All right. We have 3 late filed resolutions. The first one is a resolution congratulating Cane Ridge High School alumnus Adonai Mitchell on winning back-to-back college football player national championship. This is by Councilmember Rosenberg and Pooley. Councilmember Rosenberg, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Should I suspend first or ask for a committee report first?
Go ahead and suspend first.
I'd like to move to suspend the rules, please.
All right. This one went to rules. Is that correct, Councilmember Murphy? Did something happen there?
Yes.
Okay. What happened?
We appreciate the good luck charm that Councilman was trying to do by not filing this timely, and so we were okay with it being late, and we approved it 5 in favor, 0 against, although not all of us may be in favor of the team.
So that was the emergency, was that it was a superstitious non-filing of the resolution. I got it. Now is a good time to move to suspend the rules.
I'd like to move to suspend the rules,
All right.
please.
Councilor Rosenberg has moved.
Does not indicate fandom of the team.
All right. Has moved to suspend the rules to get this measure before us tonight. Any objection to suspension of the rules? Any TCU graduates having any problems? Seeing none, rules are suspended. Councilman Rosenberg, you're on your resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Or Alabama fans, since that includes Adonai Mitchell's contributions to Georgia's championship over Alabama.
You want to go back to the suspension of the rules motion?
I'd like to move approval and wish him great luck in the future.
All right. So Councilmember Rosenberg has moved approval properly. Second to discussion, Councilmember O'Connell. I'm kind of scared about this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to request an extension of the Murphy rule that everybody voting in the affirmative be hereby recorded as a Georgia fan.
Councilmember Roberts, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. That's outrageous. I would like to not ever be on anything Georgia or LSU. No offense. This is an Alabama connection.
All right. So with I can't say without objection, Councilmember O'Connell. I think we're on your own on this one. I believe that Councilmember Stiles is next.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to be added as a sponsor to this bill.
Okay. Well, there's one, Councilmember O'Connell. All right. Councilmember Pulley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I wholeheartedly support this resolution honoring local players on the national championship team from the greatest college football conference in the land. I also want to make sure that our dear friend Jerry Maynard understands. I understand he's been popping off about that mid-major Micro 10 conference and somewhat thinking that they ought to have been in that doggone game. But anyway, thank you, Councilmember Rosenberg, for bringing this, and I appreciate being a sponsor.
All right. Councilmember Swope.
Previous question.
I figured that was coming.
Please.
Previous question has been called. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. We're on the resolution. Do I need to go on the board, Councilmember Roberts? Councilmember Johnston? We're on the resolution. This is late filed by Councilmember Rosenberg and Pulley. All those in favor of the late file resolution say aye. Opposed, no. Resolution is adopted. All right, next resolution is by Councilmember Sawara, a resolution celebrating the unveiling of an historical marker to honor Kurdish Americans in Nashville and Davidson County. Councilmember Sawara, you're recognized on your resolution.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Should I ask for committee reports too, or do I do suspension?
You need to go to rules first. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized. Did this one come before the Rules Committee?
Yes, and after clarifying the calendar, we were okay with the emergency filing and 5 in favor, 0 against on content.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Sawara. Now you got to move to suspend the rules.
Yes, I'd like to move to suspend the rules.
All right, so Councilmember Sawara has moved to suspend the rules to get this matter heard before us tonight. Any objection to suspension of the rules? Did I hear anything? No, we're good. All right.
Thank you. I'd like to move for approval with a brief comment.
All right, Councilmember Sawara, you're recognized on your resolution. You got a motion to approve, properly seconded. You.
Thank you. I want to thank Councilmember Sepulveda and Justin for recognizing the contributions of the Kurdish community in Nashville by working to have an historical marker placed on Nolensville Road. That historical marker will be done this Saturday, and this resolution is to recognize that. But I wanted to go on record, not just for the marker itself, but just recognizing that Nashville is considered a little Kurdistan, and we have over 20,000 Kurdish people living in Nashville, and they've contributed to do a whole lot of stuff, and I wanted to go on record as recognizing the Kurdish community and also celebrating the installation of that marker on Saturday. I want to invite, I think Councilmember Sepulveda will probably talk about inviting people there, but with that, I hope that everybody votes in support, and if it's possible to invoke the Murphy rule on this one. If there's no objection, I'd like to do that as well.
Okay, without objection, we'll do that. Councilmember Sepulveda, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yes, I want to thank Councilmember Sawara for filing this legislation recognizing the historical marker. I do want to thank the Councilmember Johnston for letting us borrow her district. The Metro Historical Commission came to me a long time ago wanting to put a historical marker up. Since District 30 was the only one that didn't have one, and they had a couple of options, and so they suggested recognizing one of the minority communities, and so the one I chose to recognize was the Kurdish community, since they are an integral part of our great city and county. And the historical marker unveiling will be this Saturday at 9 a.m. at the Salahuddin Center. If anyone would like to join us, I know that Rosie sent out that information. So I don't think some of y'all might not realize how important this is for the Kurdish community, because since it's been announced, there's been so many people that have reached out saying that this is amazing, and they're happy to be recognized in a city that they have adopted as their second home. So if y'all could come out, I would greatly appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Sepulveda. Anybody else on the resolution? All right, so I got a motion to approve, properly seconded. We're invoking the Murphy rule. Ready to vote. All those in favor of the resolution regarding the celebrating of the unveiling of a historical marker to honor Kurdish Americans in Nashville and Davidson County. All those in favor of the resolution say aye. Opposed, no. Resolution is adopted. Last late file resolution. This is by Councilmember Nash and others. Resolution conveying the Metropolitan Council's request that Vanderbilt University Medical Center and Humana Inc. resolve their dispute regarding reimbursement rates expediently and in such manner as to maintain current services for all Metropolitan government employees, retirees, and pensioners, and others throughout Davidson County without disruption. Councilmember Nash, you're recognized on the resolution.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We went to the Rules Committee.
Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you. We were all right with the late filed nature because it is so recent, and on content, 5 in favor, 0 against.
All right.
I'm in the queue also for on content.
Okay. Councilmember Nash, back to you.
As almost everyone here knows.
Move to suspend the rules.
Move to suspend the rules.
All right. Councilmember Nash has moved to suspend the rules to get this matter before us tonight. Any objection to suspension of the rules? Seeing none, rules are suspended. Councilmember Nash, you're on your resolution.
As I'm sure most all of you are aware, this past Monday, the Benefit Board was notified that Vanderbilt Medical Center was no longer going to accept Humana Advantage plans. And then last year, this council had transitioned all our retirees to Humana Advantage plan. So not only does this affect continuity of care to a group of retirees that is at that age where we tend to have a little more medical issues, where continuity of care becomes very important. And so I thought it was important for this body to ask both Humana and Vanderbilt come back to the table, get over this impasse. You are two giants in healthcare providing and sophisticated enough, and surely should understand the anxiety that many of our retirees, Metro retirees and retirees from everywhere else in this county are suffering right now if this in fact is the final decision. We really wish you'll come back to the table. There may be some options in this resolution that may or may not be able to be done. We understand that. But the most important part of this resolution is that request that you come back, negotiate in good faith, and come up with a workable plan to keep people covered.
All right, so Councilmember Nash is moving this late file resolution. It's also sponsored by Councilmember Syracuse, Truffle, Stiles, and Johnston. So Nash has moved the passage of the resolution, properly seconded. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized.
Thank you. Well, I support our efforts here to try to get two healthcare giants back to the table. I think it would be wrong to ignore the fact that we as a body, we as a Metro government, our decision-making in this process, we limited the access to choice and care of healthcare providers by going with the Humana plan only for our employees, retiree, pensioners when they reach a certain point, when they have to switch over to that, right? we limited their options. And while that may have saved us money, what have we done? Now, maybe this could not have been predicted, maybe it could have, but even a letter from the administration this week showed that Vanderbilt has gotten into this mess with Blue Cross Blue Shield in the past. So what I'd like to do from here is we can not only just wag our finger at Vanderbilt and Humana, but we need the administration and the benefits board and the civil service board and all of the boards that are supposed to be fulfilling promises made to our employees. They need to go back and look at this and make sure we made the right decision. Because anytime we limit access to choice and care of healthcare providers or healthcare locations, we ourselves are just as guilty as these two entities that are not agreeing on prices right here. So I think that is really our next step as a council, is that we need to hold ourselves accountable for limiting that access to choice in healthcare. And I expect us to continue this conversation. And I hope this comes to a better resolution for everyone. But I also hope that when this happens with insurance companies and providers that don't impact our employees, that we also as a body say get back to the table and get back to work. Not just standing up for those of us in this Humana plan, but if this happens with any insurance company and healthcare provider, we should be speaking out then too, because it is just as vital to access to life, liberty, and happiness, to have health care choice and options.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you. So I was fairly skeptical of this proposal to move our retirees onto a Medicare Advantage program when it came before us. But the number one question that the council asked at that time, and that was answered by the administration, was, will this affect people's options for care? Will people lose providers? Will people lose doctors? And we were told, over and over again, in several different ways, no. And so it's really disappointing to see this happening. A few days, this thing went into effect January 1st, and within a few days, we've got these notices from providers. So, I haven't read the contract that was signed with Humana. Is there, if anybody from the administration, if you can speak to, is there a threshold? So we've got the largest healthcare provider in the county now saying, we're not going to serve patients under this plan. Is there a clawback or like a threshold in that contract that says, okay, if you lose 2 of 3 major providers, or if you lose, is there some measure that would allow us to get out of this contract if it's not going to work for our retirees? If they lose.
Mr. Jamison, do you want to answer that?
Thank you, Councilman Parker. Our HR Director, Shannon Hall, appeared at the Public Health Committee to just bring council members up to speed on sort of a rapidly evolving process. She was asked similar questions and noted that there are alternatives and there are opt-outs. It's extremely, extremely complicated. She did walk through how this particular episode and the decision to go with Medicare Advantage are 2 separate entities, 2 separate paths, and very much defended the previous decision to make that enrollment. The mayor's office was first alerted to this this past Monday. Submitted the letter that is similar to the late filed resolution to both Humana and Vanderbilt. We have a written response from Humana, do not have a response yet from Vanderbilt. I do believe they followed up by telephone with our Chief Operating Officer, Kristen Wilson, and Sam Wilcox, requesting some information on one of the 2 options that was submitted or suggested in the letter. Number 1, obviously, keep negotiating, as Councilman Nash, keep negotiating in good faith. We are hearing anecdotally that another insurance provider was given a similar termination notice, but that was resolved. So hopefully the same can apply to Humana, if that's true. I do not have that formally confirmed yet. The second option being, if you cannot resolve this percentage dispute, can you at least continue to see the Metropolitan employees on an out-of-network basis, on non-par basis? That has been applied in previous episodes. If you go back decades, this has been almost cyclical, that major healthcare providers will have problems with reimbursement rates, rattle the sabers with the insurance companies, and a conclusion is reached. Understanding from Humana is that Vanderbilt is requesting a 20% increase. We believe that's 20% over the Medicare reimbursement rates. Would they settle for something less? Would Humana be able to come up with something more? That's the rub that we have to impress upon both of them to pursue. We've reached out to all of the major employer labor representative groups for Metro employees, the FOP, Firefighters Local 140, SEIU, the MNEA, all exerting pressure and also all sharing stories of their constituents' nightmarish reactions to this. There was a pensioner, a former firefighter, who was receiving sustained care at Vanderbilt, and if he does not continue to receive that care for the next 2 critical months, will lose his eyesight. And it is hard to hear stories like that and just be thinking that this may revolve to negotiations about an additional percentage. And if that's what it is, I just think it's incumbent upon all of us to remind one or both entities, whoever's at fault, and I don't know who it is, but remind them both that there are significant consequences here, and we ask them to please get back to the negotiating table as soon as possible.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you for that explanation, and I do appreciate, by all accounts that I've heard around this, the administration's been working super hard. I know Director Hall's been working very hard on this, so thank y'all for all your work on this. And I guess that as much as I appreciate the, trying to get the parties back to the table, I mean, I would like a better understanding of what our plans B, C, and D are here. So if any of that information that could be provided to us in writing, I would appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Young. Sorry, there you go.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I, feel it strongly to get up and kind of correct a little bit of this narrative that's going on. This has nothing to do with the decision this body made about moving folks that had not yet moved to Medicare Advantage with Humana doing that. This is solely because of business dealings between 2 entities, Humana and Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Of all our pensioners, 15% are affected by this that are Vanderbilt patients. This has nothing to do with the financially prudent decision that we made to get everyone moved to Humana. At the time, Vanderbilt had an open contract with Humana to accept them as patients. There was no termination date. They did this as they go through this renegotiation process of Medicare reimbursement rates. But let me say this, and it feels weird to necessarily be doing the bidding of a healthcare corporation like Humana, but at the same time, I think it's worth publicly putting pressure on an entity like Vanderbilt University Medical Center, who does a lot of contracting, does a lot of business, and gets a lot of benefits from the Metropolitan government, all while paying $0 in property taxes to us. And I think we need to make sure that people understand that this is not exclusive to the 15% of Metro pensioners affected, but also to all Davidson County residents that are on the Humana Advantage plan, beyond Metro pensioners. But I just felt the need to kind of correct that narrative that was starting to develop, and also say that I have been thoroughly impressed, and I think the response to this by staff has been exactly what we needed. Immediately, Director Hall convened the representatives of the affected employee unions and the mayor's office, got everyone on the same page, on the same message, to stand united with the 2 parties, not picking a side, so that they would work this out. and worked tirelessly as soon as this was noticed. So I think we are doing everything that we can at this point, and we still have things in our back pocket that we can do. But I think it is important that we not make this an issue of, oh, well, this is because the city moved everyone to a certain plan. That is not the case. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to lift up something that came out of our Public Health and Safety Committee meeting today. It was already mentioned that Director Hall came and gave us a very extensive update of what is happening and just the information that was available to us. I would encourage my colleagues to go back and watch that on YouTube tomorrow. If you have the time or the capacity to do that, it would be great to be able to catch up on that information. But one thing that I did want to lift up was that we were advised that this Vanderbilt making this request was not solely to Humana. So this is happening with other healthcare providers as well. So similar to my colleague who wanted to just kind of correct the narrative, I just wanted to make sure that that information was being conveyed, that this was not solely to Humana. This is also happening with other healthcare providers that are in business with Vanderbilt, per the information that was given to us today from Director Hall. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Swope.
Previous question.
Councilmember Swope is called the previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. We are voting on the late file resolution regarding Humana and Vanderbilt. If I can get it. This is the resolution brought by Councilmember Nash, late filed. So the motion is to approve, properly seconded. We're ready to vote. All those in favor of the late file resolution regarding Metropolitan Council's request for Vanderbilt University and Humana, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is adopted. All right. I think that completes all late file resolutions. All right, we are now on bills on introduction and first reading. We can take them all together. Does anything need to be bumped off of first reading? Anything need to be bumped off? All right, need a motion to approve. Got a motion to approve all bills on introduction, first reading. There's only 5 of them, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of all bills on introduction, first reading say aye.
Yeah.
Opposed, no. That motion is adopted. We are now on bills on second reading. We've got a consent calendar. Let me go through those. These are items on the consent calendar for second reading. First one up is item number 39, 1647 is on consent. Item number 43, BL 2023-1651 is on consent. 1652 is on consent. 1653 is on consent. 1654 is on consent. 1655 is on consent. 1656 on consent. 1657 is on consent. 1658 is on consent. 1659 is on consent, and 1660 is on consent. Anything needs to be bumped off of that consent calendar? Okay. All right, so we can do it then. Okay. All right, so one other item can go on consent. We were just checking. It's item number 42. It's BL 2023-1650. That can also go on the consent calendar. Okay. Okay, anything needs to be bumped off of consent? All right. right, here we go. Item number 39, Bill 2023-1647 by Council Members Henderson, Pulley, Roten, and O'Connell, an ordinance amending various provisions of Chapter 6.104, 13.0, and 13.32 of the Metropolitan Code relating to sidewalk vending and the clearing of obstacles from the public right-of-way. Item number 42, Bill 2023-1650, O'Connell, Roten, and others, an ordinance authorizing the abandonment and conveyance of, by quitclaim deed, of approximately 0.024 acres of excess right-of-way adjacent to 11th Avenue North, and approving a performance agreement under which a WeGo transit stop will be constructed at no cost to the Metropolitan government. Item number 43, Bill 2023-1651, Roberts, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan government to abandon public utility easement rights for property located at 425A Westboro Drive. Bill 2023-1652, Hancock, Withers, and Pulley, an ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan government to accept a new sanitary sewer manhole for property located at 908 Anderson Lane. Item number 45, Bill 2023-1653, Withers and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan government to accept a new public sanitary sewer main, sanitary sewer manholes, easements for 3 properties located on Sunset Road in Williamson County, also known as Davis Property Sewer. Item number 46 by Taylor, Withers, and Pulley, Bill 2023-1654, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan government to abandon existing public sanitary sewer mains and to accept new public sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for property located at 2521 Clarksville Pike. Item number 47, Bill 2023-1655 by Toombs, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan government to accept public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for property located at 600 and 606 Ewing Drive. Item number 48, Bill 2023-1656 by Toombs, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan government to abandon existing public water mains and to accept new public water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, and sanitary sewer manholes for property located at 1016 and 1018B West Trinity Lane. Item number 49, Bill 2023-1657, Sledge, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan government to accept new water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for property located at Rains Avenue Unnumbered, also known as Fairgrounds Mixed Use Block C. Item number 50, Bill 2023-1658, Evans, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan government to accept a new sanitary sewer main, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for 2 properties located at 1015 Tulip Grove Road and Rachel's Ridge. Bill 2023-1659, item number 51, Syracuse, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan government to abandon existing sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for 3 properties located at 2842, 2836, and 2832A, Lebanon Pike. And BL 2023-1660, Roten, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan government of Nashville to abandon existing public water main, fire hydrant assembly, and easements, except new public water mains, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for property located at 5655 Fritz Boulevard, also known as TriStar Summit Medical Center, South Bed Tower. Those are the items on the second reading consent calendar. Does anything need to be bumped off? Seeing none, committee reports. I've got just a couple. Councilmember Roten, I think you've got just a few.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. 1647 and 1650 were both approved. 13 in favor, 0 against.
All right. Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Committee met and considered ordinances Bill 2023-1650, 1651, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 1660, and we recommended approval of all of those. 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstention.
All right. Councilmember Pulley, you got the last report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Transportation and Infrastructure recommended approval of BL 2023-1647, 11 in favor, 0 against, and 1650 through 1660, 8 in favor, 0 against, and I move approval of the second reading consent agenda.
All right, I got a motion to approve second reading consent by Councilmember Pulley, properly seconded. Any discussion on second reading consent? Seeing none, all those in favor of the second reading consent agenda say aye. Opposed, no. Second reading consent agenda passes. We've got a couple of bills to pick up. First one up, item number 38, Bill 2022-1571 by Councilmember Stiles and Gamble. It's an ordinance to amend Title 8 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws relative to animals. Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Budget and Finance, Councilmember Roten.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance approved for deferral until the first meeting in July. 13 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, Councilmember Syracuse, Public Health.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Health and Safety considered 1571, voted in favor for deferral, 7 in favor, 0 against, to the first meeting in July.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. I would like to defer with a brief comment.
All right, so the deferral motion is to the first meeting in July?
That is correct.
All right, properly seconded. Back to you.
So you should have on your desk a Cliff Note version of some of the updates that we have worked on thus far. We have had a committee of animal advocates working on this since last summer. We've made a lot of good progress. We realized last week when we had our community meeting that there was one item that needed some more looking into with Metro Legal, and so that's why I decided to defer, but we decided to defer even further after the meeting, discussing some of the comments and suggestions that were made that were really helpful. We had a really positive meeting last week, and I'm very encouraged. So just wanted to let people know where we are, what some of the changes are, and we'll be back after the budget passes. And it's certainly our hope that we can get MAC the care and attention that they deserve. They've been woefully neglected in terms of budgeting. They have 14 staff members, and the average for a city our size is 32. So if everyone could keep that in mind as we move into the budget season, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to defer until the first meeting in July.
All right, the motion is to defer to the first meeting in July. It's properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you. I'd like to table that motion with a brief explanation.
All right, so it's just a tabling motion. All right, so Councilmember Murphy is tabling the deferral motion, correct? Second? Properly seconded. Okay, so you are moving to table the motion to defer. So how that works is that's a discussion between the two of you. It's a debate. It is handled by Rule 35. So a motion to table may be debated only by the maker of the motion and one proponent of the ordinance or resolution involved. If the motion to table is directed at a motion, which this one is, the motion to table may only be debated by the maker of the motion to table and the maker of the motion against which the tabling motion is directed. So, Councilmember Murphy, you are making the motion to table, so you go first. Councilmember Murphy, you're recognized, and then Councilmember Stiles will go after that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I feel like this piece of legislation has been it has been brought before us before, similar legislation, and it's come back. It's been deferred. It's been worked on several times. Deferring it until this summer. Now, I grant it's after the budget, and I understand that the sponsor had wanted to do a public hearing and things like that. But the fact of the matter is this legislation, the language that is contained in it is not appearing to get better or more fair for animals in our community. In fact, this legislation will shrink the pool of affordable housing options for our residents. This legislation requires landlord notice, which can lead to discrimination. It requires a registry of dangerous dogs, which again can lead to housing discrimination. Parts of this, yes, you have a Cliff Notes version, but I think it's a little bit sanitized because what's important too is this legislation also would say that if the owner doesn't follow the General Sessions judge guidelines, then the dog should be put down. The dog does not have the ability to follow the judge's guidelines of restrictions and restrainment and things like that. It is up to the owner. And so to kill a dog based on an owner's behavior is fundamentally not right and not what this city represents. I think that there are lots of issues with this bill. I'm just trying to hit the highlights here, but I think this bill needs to start over. I don't think we need to keep kicking the can. I don't think that this is where Nashville needs to go. There is plenty of model legislation out there that has been adopted by many cities, and I think that's the direction we need to go into. This legislation that would hurt our affordable housing pool would discriminate against shelter animals, discriminate against animals who have maybe had an incident, but keep them on a list, a registry for almost 5 years is not where Nashville is. That's not who we are. We are a city that was the first in Tennessee to pass humane retail sales ordinance where we banned the retail sales and ended puppy mill sales in Nashville. We're the first to do that in the state. This is not along those lines of this body. So I'm going to ask y'all to table the motion because we need to just get this bill off of our agenda, let them start over with something fresh, but this is not the direction we need to go in.
Right, thank you, Councilmember Murphy. Pursuant to Rule 35, Councilmember Stiles, you get a respond.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor, and thank you very much, Councilmember Murphy, for your concerns. I wish you had attended last week's meeting so you could have heard the progress that we did make. I would prefer not to table this based on the conversations, not only that we started having last summer, but including last week. We had some individuals that came that are very strong animal advocates that were encouraged by the conversation that we were having, made some good suggestions. Metro Legal is looking into the questions that they had. There were several people that admitted last week there's a lot of misinformation that has been spread about this bill, what's in it, what is not. This is not intended in any way, and nor do I think it affects affordable housing. It is important to know if there is a dog that has had an issue that is going to be living in an apartment complex, you should know that. You should know that dog is living in an apartment next door to you. If you're in a neighborhood and there is a dangerous dog that has attacked people, you should know that they're living next door. And one of the things that this bill does is require that there is signage that lets people know that there is a dangerous dog that's living next door. I don't think this precludes anyone from being able to have a pet. This encourages accountability for pet owners. It's one of the things that we're struggling with. And even in last week's meeting, many of the advocates agreed that the issues that we're having with some animals, with roaming, with attacking people, needs to be addressed. And we are on the right path to get there. I think it has been a long road, but to give up and start over from scratch, given all of the individuals that have participated with Animal Control, Music City Animal Rescue, Hip Donaldson Pets, Friends of MAC, Pet Community Center, the Humane Association, Nashville Safe Coalition, the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, and the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency have all been at the table for these last few months to talk about where we need to go. And many things that were out of order are now in place, are in alignment with state laws that had not previously been. We've updated some terminology that also needed to be updated. So I understand that it has been a long road, but we are moving in the right direction. And certainly if this group of individuals plus MAC is comfortable moving forward, I don't think we should stop.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Stiles. Okay, where we are is, again, Councilmember Stiles moved to defer the bill, BL 2022-1571. Her motion was to defer to the first meeting in July. Councilmember Murphy has moved to table that deferral motion. And so we are voting on a tabling motion, which will go on the board for. So if you, again, Councilmember Stiles, her motion was to defer to the first meeting in July. We have not voted on that. Councilmember Murphy has moved to table that deferral motion. So if you're for Councilmember Murphy, you would vote aye on the tabling motion. If you're willing to consider the deferral motion for Councilmember Stiles, you'd vote no. Right. Mr. Clark, if you would. Tell me when you're ready. Again, we're voting on Councilmember Murphy's motion to table. Okay, we are ready to vote. Mr. Clerk, open up the machines. Okay, all votes are in. Mr. Clerk, if you would, close the machines, take the vote. Ayes 20, noes 15, table, 2 abstentions. The tabling motion prevails. So where we are is that the Councilmember Murphy's motion to table takes the motion to defer off the table. I mean, so we no longer are on the motion to defer. Right? So we're back, Councilmember Stiles, to you. So right now, we are on your bill, and there is, you have to decide what you'd like to do with it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Then I will withdraw the bill.
Okay, so the bill is withdrawn. All right. Okay. We move on. We are now on items, it's items 40 and 41. Those are the last 2 bills on the second reading. On second reading, both those bills have to be deferred by rule because we are waiting for reports from the Emergency Communications District Board. Both of these bills rename a road, and we have to wait for these to come in. So the first bill is BL 2023-1648 by Councilmembers Sledge, Withers, and Pulley. It's an ordinance to amend the GIS system, street and alley centerline layer for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County by renaming Horton Avenue between 11th Avenue South and 18th Avenue South to DeFord Bailey Avenue. And the second one, item 41, is by Councilmember O'Connell, Withers, and others. Bill 2023-1649, ordinance to amend the GIS system, street and alley centerline layer for the Metropolitan Government by renaming Lifeway Plaza between Reverend Kelly M. Smith Way and the 12th Avenue North, 14th Avenue North intersection to Josephine Holloway Avenue. Both those bills, again, are deferred by rule that be deferred one meeting. We are, I believe that's it on second reading. We are now on bills on third reading, and there is a host of bills on the third reading consent calendar, so I'll go through those fairly quickly. These are bills on third reading. This is on the consent agenda. Item number 53, BL 2022-1483 is on consent. 1484 is on consent. The next item on consent is item number 57, BL 2022-1525 is on consent. Next item up on consent is item number 61. That's BL 2022-1583 on consent. 1594 is on consent. 1595 is on consent. 1596 on consent. 1597, item 65, 1597 is on consent. 1598 on consent. 1599 on consent. 1601 is on consent. 1602, item number 69, item is BL 2022-1602 is on consent. 1603 on consent. 1604 on consent. 1605 on consent. 1606 on consent. Item number 74, BL 2022-1610 is on consent. Item number 76, BL 2022-1613 is on consent. Item 77, BL 2022-1615 is on consent. BL 2022-1616 is on consent. Item 79, BL 2022-1620 is on consent. Item number 82, BL 2022-1623 is on consent. Item 83, BL 2022-1624 is on consent. 1626 on consent. 1627 on consent. Item number 86, 1629 is on consent. 87, BL 2022-1632 is on consent. Sorry, thank you. Thank you. Item number 88, BL 2022-1633 is on consent. 1634 is on consent. 1635 on consent. 1636 on consent. 1637 on consent. 1638 is on consent. 1639 is on consent. 1640 is on consent. Those are the bills on the consent calendar. Councilmember Sledge?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Please pull item number 63, Bill 2022-1595 from consent.
Back. Item number 63, BL 2022-1595 is off of consent. Okay, that's item 63 off of consent. Anything else? Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just confirming item 55 is not on consent. That's BL 2022-1490.
Yeah, it's got amendments, so it's not
great,
on
thank
consent. Okay. Anything else? All right. Bills on third reading consent. Here we go. Item number 53, Sledge and Allen, BL 2022-1483. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from IR to SP zoning on properties located at 426, 446, 464 Chestnut Street and Chestnut Street unnumbered approximately 243 feet north of Martin Street. BL 2022-1484, Sledge and Allen. That's the companion bill and ordinance to authorize building material restrictions requirements for BL 2022-1483, proposed specific plan zoning district. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Next item is item number 57, Bill 2022-1525 by Councilmember Hancock. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing RS 7.5 to R20 zoning for property located at 313 Delaware Avenue, approximately 130 feet north of Burwood Avenue, 0.45 acres. Next item on consent is item number 61, BL 2022-1583. Sledge, Roten, and Hurt. Ordinance approving Amendment 2 to the contract for program management services between Gobble Hayes Partners and the Metropolitan Government, which extends the contract term for an additional 30 months. Item number 62, Toombs, BL 2022-1594. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from RS 7.5 to R10 zoning. Property located at 1236 North Avondale Circle, approximately 627 feet west of Hampton Street. BL 2022-1596, item 64, Councilmember O'Connell. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from MUIA to SV zoning for property located at 1414 Church Street and 210, 212, 216, 218, and 220 15th Avenue North, approximately 220 feet west of 14th Avenue North. Bill 2022-1597 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from RS 10 to R10 zoning for property located at 1720 River Drive, approximately 75 feet southeast of Doak Avenue. Bill 2022-1598 by Councilmember Sledge, O'Connell, and Cash. That's Bill 2022-1598. It's an ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing a specific plan on property located at 2212 12th Avenue South, approximately 141 feet south of Lawrence Avenue, zoned SP. And the companion bill 1599, ordinance to authorize building material restrictions requirements for BL 2022-1598, a proposed specific plan zoning district. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. BL 2022-1601, item number 68, Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from R8 to R6 zoning for property located at 1022 Alice Street, approximately 141 feet southeast of River Pearl Place. Item 69, BL 2022-1602, Sledge and O'Connell, ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from IWD to SP zoning on properties located at 521 and 525 Hagan Street, corner of Merritt Avenue and Hagan Street, and the companion bill, which is item 70, BL 2022-1603, Sledge and O'Connell, ordinance to authorize building material restrictions requirements for BL 2022-1602, proposed specific plan zoning district. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials restricting the construction of buildings. BL 2022-1604, item number 71 by Councilmember O'Connell. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by applying an urban design overlay to various properties starting at the corner of Broadway and 16th Avenue North, zone MUIA. Item number 72, BL 2022-1605 by Councilmember Toombs, ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from IWD to MUGNS zoning for property located at 2 Vantage Way, corner of Great Circle Road and Vantage Way. BL 2022-1606 by Councilmember Sledge and O'Connell. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from IR to MULANS zoning for property located at 1215 4th Avenue South, approximately 188 feet east of Brown Street. Item 74, BL 2022-1610, Taylor and Withers. Withers, an ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from RS5 to RM20A in its zoning for property located at 709 40th Avenue North and 40th Avenue North unnumbered. Okay. BL 2022-1612 by Councilmember Parker. That is not on the consent calendar. Item number 76, BL 2022-1613, Taylor and Withers ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from CF to MUIA zoning for property located at 1926 Hay Street, northeast corner of 20th Avenue North and Hay Street. BL 2022-1615, item number 77, by Gamble and Van Rees, an ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing the specific plan on property located at West Cap Road, unnumbered approximately 58 feet north of Old Hickory Boulevard, Zone R15 and SP. Item number 78, BL 2022-1616, Taylor and Withers. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from RS5 to RM9A zoning for property located at 2803 Torrent Street, approximately 55 feet west of 28th Avenue North. Item number 79, BL 2022-1620 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from IWD and OL to MUGAN as zoning for property located at 131 French Landing Drive, southeast of the corner of French Landing Drive and Vantage Way. Item number 82, BL 2022-1623 by Councilmember Van Rees. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from SP to SP zoning for properties located at 115 and 121 Hart Lane, approximately 574 feet east of Dickerson Pike. Item number 83, the companion bill. BL 2022-1624, ordinance to authorize building material restrictions and requirements for BL 2022-1623, proposed specific plan zoning district, and the proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Item number 84, BL 2022-1626, by council members Roten, Syracuse, and Bradford. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by applying the historic landmark overlay district for property located at 2901 and 2910 Elm Hill Pike, corner of Elm Hill Pike and Hurt Drive, and 2913 Harper Place. BL 2022-1627, companion bill, an ordinance to authorize building material restrictions requirements for BL 2022-1626, proposed historic landmark overlay district. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials restricted in the construction of buildings. Item number 86 was on consent. We're pulling that one. The next one on consent is item number 88, BL 2022-1633, Allen, Roten, Hurt, and others, an ordinance amending Title 5 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to adopt a commercial property assessed clean energy and resilient CPACER program within Davidson County to be administered by the Office of the Metropolitan Trustee. Item number 89, BL 2022-1634, Allen, Roten, Hurt, and Murphy, ordinance approving standardized forms, agreements, and other documents to be utilized by the Metropolitan Trustee administering the CPACER program. Item number 90, BL 2022-1635, Toombs, Roten, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance approving a participation agreement between the Metropolitan Government acting through Housing Division of the Metropolitan Planning Department and Urban Housing Solutions to provide enhanced pedestrian signaling for UHS's proposed development, as well as other existing properties in the area. Item number 91, BL 2022-1636, Johnston, Roten, Withers, and others. This is an ordinance approving the Fourth Amendment to the lease agreement between the Metropolitan Government and the Nashville Zoo, Inc., approving the conveyance of property for the Nashville Zoo via quitclaim to the Metropolitan Government and approving a participation agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Davidson County and the Nashville Zoo for the construction of a facility parking garage. Item number 92, BL 2022-1637, Withers, Roten, and Hurt, ordinance approving a purchase and sale agreement between the Trust for Public Land and Metropolitan Government for parcel property located at 1900 Forest Avenue. Item number 93, BL 2022-1638, O'Connell, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing Nuco Arc LLC to install, construct, and maintain underground encroachments in the right-of-way located at 221 4th Avenue North. Item number 94, BL 2022-1639, Withers and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to abandon public sanitary sewer force main, to construct public sanitary sewer force mains, and to acquire permanent and temporary easements through negotiation, condemnation, acceptance needed for 13 properties located in White Screen Pike at Interstate 24. Item number 95, BL 2022-1640 by Bradford, Withers, and Pulley, ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to accept new water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assemblies, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for property located at 1363 Pleasant Hill Road, also known as Pleasant Cove Subdivision. Those are the items on the third reading consent calendar. Anything needs to be bumped off? All right. Seeing none, Seeing none, we are ready for one committee report. Councilmember Withers, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Let me run through our list, which is long, but all of the reports are the same. All right, so ordinance BL, planning and zoning met and considered ordinances BL 2022-1483, 84, 1525, 1583, 1594, 1596, 1597, 1598, 1599, 1601, 1602, 1603, 1604, 05, 06, 1610, 1613, 1615, 16, 1620, 1623, 24, 1626, 27, 29,
79, 59.
And we recommended approval of each of those 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
All right. You want to move the consent agenda?
I would love to move the consent calendar.
All right. I got a motion to approve the third reading consent agenda, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the third reading consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Third reading consent agenda passes. All right, let's go back through the bills that were not on consent. Item number 55, Councilmember O'Connell, BL 2022-1490. That's an ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from OR 20 to SP zoning for property located at 1622 Rosedale Parks Boulevard. Southeast corner of Garfield Street and Rosedale Parks Boulevard is 0.71 acres. And the companion bill, which is item 56, BL 2022-1491 by Councilmember O'Connell. Ordinance to authorize building material restrictions and requirements for BL 2022-1490. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Councilmember O'Connell, you're on your two bills.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the first one, we have one timely filed amendment and one late filed amendment, and I don't know how, in order of operations, if I should suspend the rules now for one of the late filed or go ahead and get the other amendment on there.
Which one you want to put on the
We're
late
going to
file?
put on both if we can.
You want to put on both?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're kind of companion amendments.
Okay. All right, so let's do this. Let's get a motion on the bill first.
Perfect. So moved.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell is moving Bill 2022-1490 for passage, properly seconded. You're recognized on your first amendment.
All right, great. The first one, I believe, is timely filed, and so I do. So I guess I'll move the amendment and, with a brief comment, if I can, please.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell moves amendment number 1 to Bill 2022-1490, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll try to cover both of these as best I can and give some rationale for the late file here, which did go to rules. So we have had a good discussion on this project, which briefly is an affordable housing project focused on senior housing. As I think colleagues know, that has been a particular focus of the Housing Division now. This project will be supported by Barnes Fund. It's in my neighborhood. I think it's in the right location. It's on a transit corridor. However, in having this conversation in the community, we did source a number of concerns, and some of them had to do with the timing of the conversation, the timing of the project development, and then, I think just the way the conversation revealed some things about the specific location, the footprint, alley access, traffic signals, and kind of scale in the area. And so this pair of amendments, and I hope colleagues will allow the second one to go on as well, because these are both community-sourced amendments, I think are going to offer some protections for the concerns that got surfaced, but still allow the overall project to succeed. And I hope colleagues will support this amendment first and then allow us to consider the second. So with that, I'll renew my motion on this amendment.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell has moved approval of amendment number 1. It's been properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we're on amendment number 1. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Amendment number 1 is on. Now, Councilmember O'Connell, you're on your late filed amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to suspend the rules, please.
All right, so this one went before rules. Councilmember Murphy, walking back to our desk. What happened on this one?
We understood it was a clerical error, and we were all right with it.
All right, so this one got approved through rules. Councilmember O'Connell, you need to suspend the rules to get this one in front of you.
Thank you. Renew that motion to suspend the rules.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell is moving to suspend the rules to get a late filed amendment before you all. Any objection to suspension of the rules? Seeing none. Rules were suspended. You're on your late filed amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, these are companions. They, we had some concerns about height. We had some concerns about, ensuring that this would be affordable, et cetera. And then I've got a letter as well to ideally maybe submit to the clerk for inclusion in the record that is kind of warrants one of the things we were not able to include in the amendment, which I think would be helpful. Both of these amendments, again, are meant to address concerns surfaced by neighbors over the course of the conversation. And I'd like to recognize the organization and Spiritus that is doing this, the project team they've worked with, and then the many neighbors who came out not just to express concerns, but also the many neighbors I heard from strongly supportive of this project. And I will say, for my part personally, in this neighborhood, with more than 15 years of experience there, I think this is the right location. It's the right type of project, and Spiritus is the right organization to lead it. They've got a great service model that's already working there. But I think that many of my neighbors had legitimate concerns that I hope these amendments and some of the representations of the project team seek to mitigate to some degree, and encourage colleagues to support the bill as amended. And with that, I'll renew my motion.
All right, so I got a motion to approve the late filed amendment by Councilmember O'Connell, properly seconded. Councilmember Hancock, you're recognized.
Thank you. Coming from a district where I didn't think we go over 3 stories, except perhaps at the old hospital, the one thing in the amendment that I didn't understand, and I'd be happy if you could ask the sponsor to explain this, is the 75 feet, not to exceed 5 stories for 75 feet. Is that 75 feet from the road, 75 feet tall? What is that 75 feet?
Councilmember O'Connell?
I'm going to refer to the plan table, maybe Mr. Wilkinson, because that was language that was added after the request to do 5 stories.
All right, Mr. Wilkinson.
So that 75 feet came out of what was already in the SP, because it was already, so there's a build to area, and then there's like a second setback that was originally had the 6 stories. And so we just chopped that 6 story off. So it's just 5 stories and 75 feet in height.
Super. Thank you so much. Yes. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other questions regarding the late filed amendment? All right. We are on Councilmember O'Connell's late filed amendment on Bill 2022-1490. Again, it was moved for approval and properly seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Late filed amendments on. So you've got 2 amendments on. Councilmember O'Connell, you're on BL 2022-1490 as amended twice, and you're also on BL 2022-1491.
Thank you. I'd like to move as amended, and then the companion bill with a brief comment, please.
All right. So the motion is to approve BL 2022-1490 as amended, along with BL 2022-1491 for passage on 3rd and final reading. Properly seconded. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. These conversations we're having all across Nashville right now about affordable housing highlight both the importance, and not just on the community conversation side, but also on the scenarios in which we're presenting them. In this case, we took what is a now dormant Lutheran congregation at the corner of a gateway intersection to my neighborhood, and the organization that is kind of a parent to some of the Lutheran activities has already been active in the community for years. They have been doing work with arts for youth. They have been doing work providing food to people in need, not just in my area, but also across Rosa Parks and Cheatham Place. They have really embraced the entire community, and my hope is that as we continue to see projects like this going forward, that not only can we fund them, but also we can accommodate these conversations in the community and think about the need of the city as a whole and balance that with the concerns of the community. I'm hopeful that this project lets us do that in a context very close to my own home, and I am very glad that Inspiritus and the Barnes Fund and the people that have collaborated to make this possible chose this location. I think it's an appropriate use, and I think in a few years when this is constructed and the service is there and we've got new neighbors, everyone is going to see the potential of this. And I hope neighborhoods across the city that have contexts like this where you can bring transit and community and housing, and especially when that housing brings into dignity people who are trying to age in a community that they may otherwise be priced out of. We celebrate these opportunities. I'm celebrating it tonight and really grateful for the collaboration that got us here. Thanks so much, Mr. President. Renew my motion.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell has renewed his motion. This is on passage of Bill 2022-1490 as amended and Bill 2022-1491. This is for passage on third and final reading. Councilmember Hancock, is your button still pushed? Do you want to talk on this? You don't want to talk anymore. All right. So the button is no longer there. Anybody else? Okay, we're on the motion to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. All right, we're on item number 58, Bill 2022-1531 by Councilmember Toombs. Ordinance amending section 17.16.030 of the Metropolitan Code to require notice to surrounding property owners for adaptive residential developments. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report.
I have got government operations. Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The committee moved to defer one meeting, 6 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you. Planning and zoning, Councilmember Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning and zoning also recommended approval at the request of the sponsor, 10 in favor, 0 against.
All right, Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Move for deferral one meeting.
All right, so Councilmember Toombs has moved to defer Bill 2022-1531 one meeting. It's a deferral motion, one meeting, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral motion for one meeting say aye. Opposed, no. That one's deferred one meeting. We're on item number 59, which can be taken with item number 86, BL 2022-1570 by Councilmember Taylor and Withers. Ordinance amend Title 17 by changing from RM20 to SP zoning for a portion of property located at 3138 and property at 3140 Parthenon Avenue, approximately 119 feet east of Oman Street, 0.26 acres. And then item number 86, which is BL 2022-1629. Councilmember Taylor and Withers, that's the companion bill, an ordinance to authorize building material restrictions and requirements for BL 2022-1570, proposed specific plan zoning district. The proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. We're on those two bills. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have an amendment, and I will have to suspend the rules to add this amendment.
Okay, so council members, in order to get an amendment on, we have to, Councilmember Taylor has to move to suspend the rules. Any objection to suspension of the rules to get this amendment before us tonight? Seeing none, rules were suspended. Councilmember Taylor, you're on your amendment on BL 2022-1570.
All right, thank you. So this amendment will just change some language in the bill from G4, subsection G4 to subsection G3. This will allow it to fall in line with all of the other properties currently in the area. So all the other properties in this area are also in subsection G3, and we want to make sure that this falls in line, as well as it approves with what the SP actually says it will do.
Rule 19. Okay, so it's Rule 9. Just for the record, Rule 19. All right, so Councilmember Taylor is moving approval of the amendment for BL 2022-1570. Properly seconded. He explained what the amendment did. Any questions about the amendment? Okay, we're voting on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment to BL 2022-1570 say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment's on. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized on your bill as amended, and also item number 86.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to move the bill as amended, both bills included.
Okay. So Councilmember Taylor is moving Bill 2022-1570. Oh, that's what he wants to move.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I did not want to move it for approval. We've got a companion bill coming up a little later that was on first reading tonight. I need to defer this to the first meeting, or excuse me, to the second meeting in February. Thank you.
All right. So the motion is to defer Bill 2022-1570 as amended and Bill 2022-1629, which is item 86, to defer both of those to the second meeting in February, correct? That's the motion, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion to defer? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to defer say aye. Opposed, no. Those two measures are deferred to the second meeting in February. Next item up is item number 60 by Councilmember Sledge, Bill 2022-1578, ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from IWD to MULA in its zoning for properties located at 1276, 1278, 1282, 1284, 1286, 1288, 1290, 1302, 1306, and 1308, 4th Avenue South and 4th Avenue South, unnumbered, approximately 239 feet northeast of Zimmerly Street. Councilmember Sledge, recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I believe the Planning and Zoning Committee recommended a one-meeting deferral at the request of the sponsor, 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstention.
All right, Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. One meeting deferral, please.
All right, motion is to defer one meeting, properly seconded. Any discussion on the one meeting deferral? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That one's deferred one meeting. All right. We are now on BL 2022-1595 by Councilmember Sledge and O'Connell. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by amending an SP on property located 1267 3rd Avenue South, corner of 3rd Avenue South and Hart Street, Zone SP. Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
Councilmember Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Committee recommended approval, 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstention.
All right, Councilmember Sledge, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm asking for one meeting deferral with a very brief explanation.
All right, motion is to defer one meeting, properly seconded. Back to you.
Thank you. It appears in the time between the Planning and Zoning Committee and me standing here right here that the building may have sold, so we're trying to figure that out. So renew my motion for a one meeting deferral.
You might want to check on that one. Yeah. All right, so the motion is to defer one meeting, again, properly seconded. All those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Opposed, no. This one's deferred one meeting. All right. Next one up is item number 75, BL 2022-1612 by Councilmember Parker. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from CS to CSNS zoning for properties located at 1302 and 1308 Dickerson Pike, northwest corner of Ligon Avenue and Dickerson Pike, located within the Skyline Redevelopment District and Dickerson Pike Sign Urban Design Overlay District. Councilmember Parker, you're recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Could I get committee reports, please?
All right, Councilmember Withers, Planning and Zoning.
Planning and Zoning recommended approval, 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
All right, Councilmember Parker.
Thank you. I would like to defer this to the first meeting in March.
Okay, deferred to the first meeting in March. That's the motion. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of deferring to the first meeting in March say aye. Opposed, no. That one's deferred to the first meeting in March. Next item up is item number 80, which can be taken in with 81, BL 2022-1621 by Councilmember Rutherford. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing IR2A to SP zoning on properties located at 1094, 1098, 1104, and 1110 Barnes Road, and Barnes Road, a number approximately 36 feet east of Sydney Drive. And BL 2022-1622, the companion bill. Ordinance to authorize building material restrictions and requirements for BL 2022-1621. Proposed specific plan zoning district. Proposed ordinance requires certain materials to be restricted in the construction of buildings. Councilmember Rutherford, you're recognized.
Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. For both of these items, Planning and Zoning recommended a one meeting deferral at the request of the sponsor, 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstention.
All right, Councilmember Rutherford, you're recognized.
Move deferral one meeting.
Okay, the motion is to defer one meeting on both 1621 and 1622. Motion to defer one meeting, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Opposed, no. Those two are deferred one meeting. Let's see, do we have anything else? Oh, last one. Last bill, item number 96. Last bill up tonight, Bill 2022-1641 by Councilmember Toombs. Withers and Pulley, ordinance authorizing Metropolitan government to accept new public water and sanitary sewer main and sanitary sewer manholes for property located at 2040B McKinley Street, also known as 810 McKinley Street Development. Councilmember Toombs, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Is there a committee report?
No committee reports?
I don't think so. All right, I want to move the substitute.
All right, so Councilmember Toombs is moving a substitute on Bill 2022-1641, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the substitute.
Can I rely on the planning table? I think it's a housekeeping
What it is?
amendment or change.
Ms. Milligan?
Certainly. It updates the years of the project numbers from 22 to 21. So it is just a typographical correction.
All right, so you, Councilmember Toombs moves the substitute. Properly seconded. You've heard an explanation of it. Any questions about the substitute? Seeing none, all those in favor of the substitute say aye. Opposed, no. Your substitute's on.
Move for approval as substituted.
All right, so Councilmember Toombs has moved for approval of Bill 2022-1641 as substituted for passage on third and final reading. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of Bill 2022-1641 as substituted for passage, say aye. Opposed, no. Bill passes. Is that it? I think we got it all. Did we miss anything? We didn't. I need a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn say aye. Opposed, no. Stand adjourned.
And so the council has concluded about a 2-hour and 50-minute meeting tonight. The agenda was a little over 38 pages long and contained 96 action items. There's also the public comment period and several appointments on boards and commissions the council also considered. The council also tonight approved both a third reading ordinance and a resolution that sets new policies for dipping into the city's fund balances. This is because of some of the tight city finances the city's had in previous years. This was done without dissent by the council, although there were some questions and some concerns raised in the future that they would be able to do this. Even if they do this, there'll have to be a lot of regard to making sure things are going to be tight still in the future. Some people think so. They want to make sure that they can handle these, but this is not going to be, we're not heading into nirvana to take care of all this. Council also considered 5 resolutions and approved all but one of them. Overall, it would have been $14 million of the city's remaining federal American Rescue Funds. By far the largest allocation was $10 million to be allocated to neighborhood needs through a community-led participatory budgeting program. City's had this the last couple of years in some targeted neighborhoods. These funds will make the program more county-wide. There was an amendment to allocate $2 million of the funds to continue in one area in Bordeaux, North Nashville, so they continue to have that particular money earmarked for that area. That particular amendment was withdrawn. The council approved it again without any dissent on a voice vote. There were a lot of questions and questions particularly about the process for this going countywide to do this, and also questions about getting the proper amount and enough participation in all the neighborhoods across the community to do that. Mayor Cooper has already issued a statement praising the council's vote for this. The council also deferred the other large allocation item of rescue funds. It was $1 million to provide subsidies for electric bicycles. That's been an issue before. This sparked some controversy in the council, and I suspect that may be why it's deferred tonight for further study. This is a one-meeting deferral. All the other efforts tonight to provide money for that, which is relatively small amounts, were approved on the consent calendar, which means they were done without any council, without any no votes in the council. Overall, the council has now allocated a cumulative total of about $251 million out of the city's total American Rescue Grant of $260 million. The complete grant award must be obligated by the city before December 31st, 2024, and expended by December 31st, 2026. Of the resolutions tonight, the council accepted a grant from the Tennessee Department of Mental Health to prevent the use and control of, the State Department of Health, where Metro Health can then prevent and control the use of all tobacco products with a focus on reducing smoking during pregnancy, prevention of youth initiating usage of nicotine products, and the prevention of secondhand smoke exposure to children. Council also accepted a $8.6 million grant from the Federal Disease Control and Prevention Bureau. The funds will be used to implement workforce strategies to build organizational resilience, promote employee well-being, enhance workforce performance while focusing on building healthier communities. Council also considered an additional $450,000 from Tennessee Department of Health to cover all construction requirements associated with the cooler expansion project being done by the Office of the Medical Examiner. Council also approved 5 resolutions tonight that would create intergovernmental agreements between the State Department of Transportation and Metro government and the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure. All involve lighting and signal maintenances associated with bicycle and pedestrian facilities on portions of several Metro roadways. TDOT will pay for all the design and construction services, and NDOT will ultimately cover the maintenance costs on all the upgrades, although at this point the council staff says those particular costs for Metro are not yet defined at this point. Council also accepted a $20,000 grant from the Nashville Parks Foundation to help Metro Parks support its disability programs, offering supervised recreational activities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Council approved a number of memorializing resolutions we went over early tonight in the beginning of the program. Finally, the one memorializing resolution that did spark a lot of debate was ultimately passed without any dissent. The council requests that Metropolitan University Medical Center and Humana Inc. resolve their dispute regarding reimbursement rates expediently and in such a manner as to maintain current services for all Metro government employees, retirees, and pensioners and others throughout Davidson County without disruption. Mayor Cooper has also expressed similar concerns. There were some council members and questions about whether this was something Metro ought to be getting into. Maybe Metro didn't have a role to play in this somewhere as well. But the council went ahead and approved it tonight. On second reading bill, the council again considered briefly a major overhaul of the city's animal control program. The sponsor was going to defer it for more study until the first meeting in July, but then there was a move to table that motion to defer, which is a little bit unusual. The council then voted to table the motion to defer. It was the only vote tonight that went up on the board. Everything else was taken by voice votes tonight. That's a little unusual too, but the council, after doing that, the bill was withdrawn. So the animal control bill has once again been taken off the table here in the council. Also, the council was looking at a bill on second reading that would outlaw changes and amendments to the sidewalk vending and other clearing of obstacles for the public right-of-way. Apparently there's no controversy in that, even though sometimes those topics are quite controversial. And the bill passed on second reading on the consent calendar. Finally, on third reading, the council approved 2 bills that would set up under state law a program run through the Metro Trustee's Office to assist owners of agricultural, commercial, industrial, and some multifamily residential properties to obtain low-cost and long-term financing for qualifying clean energy and resilience improvements to their properties. The council is now in recess for 3 weeks. It'll be back on the first Tuesday in February, which is February 7th. We'll be here at that time to provide live coverage. Until then, I'm Pat Nolan, and good night from the council chambers. Tonight's meeting of the Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County Council has been coming to you live from the council chambers at the historic Metro Courthouse. It's been a public affairs presentation of the Metro Nashville Network.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.